Welcome to the Visual Cast, coming at you from California. I'm your host, Alon Hammer, aka Rem. The Visual Cast is a hybrid podcast where we sit down with some of the best, most interesting, and most exciting visual artists from all over the world. We chat about life, art, visuals, software, hardware, systems, crystals, alien downloads, spirituality, and catalysts. It's essentially a massive nerd out. But the guests also do a set where we dive into their computer and get an up-and-close look at how they make art, how they perform art, or really anything they want to share with us. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with anybody you think will enjoy this convo and showcase. So without any further ado, here's the Visual Cast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Alrighty, welcome to the Visual Cast. Joined today by a really special guest, Beth Salapek, Crystal Beth, a really exciting and up-and-coming artist, an amazing touch designer beginner, and I'm really excited to have her on. And welcome to the podcast, Beth.
Hey, thanks for having me.
For sure. I'll jump right into it because it kind of intros you in a good way. So I like to start off with like kind of a scripted question that we can get into a more discussion. So, Beth, I saw your work during the RayTKApril challenge and it was instantly impressed. Started following you and seeing kind of your progression. And for a beginner, you're showing so much progress and promise. And a big part of what we do here in the Visual Cast is platform artists of all different skills and levels. Everybody can be inspiring, everybody can be interesting, and that's kind of something that we want to show. You have an amazing understanding of style and what makes a cool visual. Your production company, Night Therapy, where you act as art director, is creating stunning events and amazing interactive installations. And you have been hustling and performing as much as you can, and it's super exciting to follow and watch. So to start things off, what is it like to you? What is it like to be a newbie in the field, and how are you being received?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have nothing but good things to say about this entire community and like what my journey has been so far. I love that this has just like been a constant like learning experience for me because that's what keeps me really interested in something. So the fact that I am learning basically the foundations of TouchDesigner, foundations of programming languages, and then on top of that, having to deal with the problem solving that comes along with that to get to my end goal has been such a fun experience. And I know it's something that's just going to continue on, and everybody in the touch designer community and just like the greater visual community are just like, like I said, I have nothing but good things to say. Everybody is so wonderful. It's a really cool place to have such a sense of community because everybody is so willing to like collaborate and share ideas, help you work through problems, or even just like chat and like be friends outside of like, I guess, little businessman mode talk. So yeah, it's definitely been so much fun, and yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. So.
Hell yeah. It's always so reassuring to hear that from somebody who has a fresh take on the thing. You know, we were talking a little bit before this about kind of just how it's always it always feels good to like, I've been in this for a long time, like over a decade, almost a decade and a half actually at this point. Damn, I'm getting old. But when I was in this industry and when I started in the industry, I had the same feeling of like everybody's so nice, everybody's so inviting, so warm, and it's just reassuring to hear from somebody who's coming into it now that is having the same experience that is kind of retained, that ethos of sharing and collaborating has retained. It definitely feels good to hear that, and I'm not that I'm surprised by it because that's really how the system is set up, my generation was received. It was so niche, so small. and then the generation before me was even smaller and even more niche, and they kind of had to figure out everything by themselves. And then, then my generation came in and is like, okay, teach me everything you know. And it's like, okay, now I'm learning everything that you know. Now I'm going to put it online and put it out there for everybody. And then, your generation before you kind of like grew up with that idea of like everything's available of information. And now it's like just any new artist that comes on, they have a Patreon, they have a place where they share their things, they have a teaching tutorial channel. And it's so nice to see, because it's like really the work that we implemented of like sharing and collaboration and that the people before me did as well is continuing and is like exponentially and scaling in a really powerful way. So that's really great. And you have to continue that as well. So
yeah,
which you are. Beth has a great Patreon as well, so you guys should check that out to see what she's up to and kind of get some of her workflow and insights into what she's doing. Okay, so let's kind of go back a little bit to little Crystal Beth, small little Crystal Beth Crystal. Growing up in North Carolina, and you're also still in North Carolina. What is kind of like North Carolina like? What's how has your experience been growing up there and living there? Tell us a little bit about that.
Good. So I grew up in Raleigh, from Raleigh, and right now I'm a little bit outside of Raleigh, but Raleigh in general, it is got a lot of influence of the South. I love that I got to grow up in the South. I think it gave me a really cool appreciation for things like slowing down and just kind of connecting with my community. And that's something that I love, and that's kept me here, honestly. But yeah, Raleigh's a really cool spot just because like as much as it has Southern influence, there's a lot of really cool, I guess, like art, music, culture going on here. It's got, as much as it is like it's very suburban, there is a really cool like urban feel in that way of like the arts and music community here. And that's something cool. I was involved with all through like growing up and high school and college, and I guess even more so doing visuals and VJing. So yeah.
So cool. So it was like kind of as you were growing up, there was kind of that idea of visuals and not visuals per se, but art and kind of like creative energy.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah.
Were you were there any early inspirations from people around you, people in your family that made you want to pursue kind of this art career? And I definitely want to talk about like what was the catalyst for the pursue, but like any early inspirations or people that gave you the pat on the back to continue what you're doing?
Both of my parents threw me into like anything and everything, like very early growing up, whether it be like, I grew up playing violin and piano. I sang in choir. I played soccer. I swam. I mean, I did every sport imaginable. My parents just encouraged me to try everything. And I think a lot of like how, I guess even my like career path and my interest shakes out, I think is very similar to my dad, in terms of like, my dad has always been kind of a jack of all trades in terms of like, he loves to pick up new hobbies every other day. And looking at him now, he's written a couple books, but he still like worked in tech, and he was a wrestler all through high school. So very similar to me in terms of just wanting to try everything and finding inspiration in everything. So I think I get a lot of that from my dad for sure.
That's so awesome. So nice to have that. From your parents and from a young age. It really makes a big difference,
Yeah.
I also like my parents were also very like kind of do what you want, but not because it was more because I didn't give them another choice, kind of like I'm going to do what I want. And then eventually they're like, okay, fine, do what you want.
Yeah, I was very similar. Yeah.
But it's it's a testament to our parents of just like, kind of, and this is something that I'm learning as being a new parent of just like, you can't really control what's going on. You kind of have to just take it as it is. And each kind of kid is so individual, and so unique and different. And it's, I think like a big part of parenting, and this is like, I don't know anything about parenting. I'm super new at it, but a big part for me has been, just like zero expectation, and like, you know, just have the baselines of like what's important to impart onto the child and leave everything else out to like, you know, whatever happens. Like, you know,
Yeah.
make sure they don't hurt themselves and maybe don't, you know, get into like bad habits at an early age, and, you know, make sure that they're good people. But then everything else, like hobbies, likes, orientation, whatever it is, you know, like whatever it is, just be like, good job, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, like
Definitely.
I feel like it's like, and it's so easier said than done. I can't imagine like if my kid starts becoming like a jock, if I'm gonna be like so like, good job, yeah, you know, like if he like throws his computer out the window or doesn't want to like play with his MIDI, you know, like I'm gonna be upset.
Yeah.
But I have to remember that it's like, you know, gotta let the kid do whatever he wants and find his own path. So,
Yeah.
super cool. And you mentioned to me that you're thinking of moving to Denver. Is that like, you know, why Denver? You know, I know there's a great art scene out there, but is there anything else that's pulling you out there? And kind of like maybe give us a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a couple things. The art and the music scene out there is crazy, and especially like my niche and what I would love to be a little bit more involved in is like that deep dub community. And Denver just has such a heart for dubstep and bass music, like in general, and especially those weird little niche like down tempo bass things really like thrive there. So that's something that I love about Denver. My partner is also a producer and a DJ, so that music scene is super, super intriguing to him. And his brother is actually out that way too, so we'd get to be close to him.
Nice.
And I played beach volleyball in college. I still coach and play, and there's like a crazy scene out there for beach volleyball.
Really?
So that's so that's something that's
In
like important to
Denver?
me or exploring that. Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah.
it's not beach, is it?
They have indoor facilities there,
Like
so
with
you're able to
sand?
play all year. Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
And like a lot of athletes like to train at the altitude up there. So
Oh,
Denver is
yeah,
like a
that's
pretty
right.
big hotspot
That's
for,
right.
I guess, like athletics in general. But there's like a really large, like thriving beach volleyball scene there. So
That's so cool.
yeah.
Nice. I was just I just reminded me of I was in Pittsburgh doing this job for Magic Box, and what the job was to like film college sports and different college you know, sports teams. They came to the truck, they did like all their things for TV, whatever. So
Okay.
so we got to like see all the college teams, and supposedly they have like the best women's volleyball team in the nation. And like one of the
Okay.
girls, like the captain of the team, like came in, she had like 6 like championship rings. I'm
Yeah.
like, how could you have 6 rings if you're only in college for 3 years?
Well, COVID gave people a lot of
That's
eligibility.
exact. Yeah, because
Yeah.
of COVID, they had like tons of different different things going on. So it was like, oh, that's so
Okay.
crazy. You know, she's like
Yeah.
rocking in with like all these rings. Like, wow, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. Yeah, it seems like a good sport. You know, I coming from Israel, like sports. Not that sports aren't important in Israel, but but like where I came from, the community that I came from, like an Orthodox community, was like sports was kind of very secondary. I was also never really care about sports, but then coming to
Okay.
the States, it's like it's crazy how ingrained into the culture and society sports is. And it's like, again, like in
Okay.
Israel, like there are, you know, soccer fans and there's tons of sports, and it's like it's not devout of sports, but it's like in the States, it's so like culturally relevant, and like, you know, from high school
Yeah.
to college to major leagues.
Definitely.
I think it's a good thing, you know. I mean, it's like you know, especially if you enjoy it, then it's like you're only getting good things out of it, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So, okay, so Denver sounds like a really nice place for you to go. I'm really excited for you, and maybe we'll meet each other at some point there, because
Yeah.
I've only been there once, but I'm gonna try and come there more often for various things. Awesome. So, okay, so we kind of get this kind of idea of Beth. You're you know, you're kind of a very interesting gal. You like a lot of different things, and you kind of like put your hand in a few different things. What was like, you know, kind of like what was your earliest kind of experience with visuals and the idea of a VJ, and why did you want to become a VJ?
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed being involved in creating a moment, creating like an atmosphere, an immersive space. And I never really knew how to go about that. So I like have always toyed around with different ideas of like, maybe I want to do like interior design. I don't know. And I've always been drawn to music industry. I've always had lots of friends that are in it. And just growing up around music too, I was like, maybe that's like a cool place to look. And then now with my partner, being a DJ and a producer, I really got thrown into it there. And that was where I was like, wow, I really do enjoy doing production work. I really like being a part of this entire thing. That's something that's really rewarding for me. So I got introduced to TouchDesigner through my partner, who has a background. He's a software developer. So he started using TouchDesigner to do some LED lighting stuff and was like, hey, maybe you should check this out. And I had like tinkered around with like Adobe stuff in the past. And last year I was doing some freelance graphic design work, and Adobe's hasn't never been like the most intuitive for me. So like even when I was like playing around with it in college, I like nothing ever really stuck for me doing anything with that. And then I found TouchDesigner and just like fully threw myself into that. Like I said, at the time I was doing like freelance graphic design work, and quickly integrated my entire workflow into that and was like, what else can I do with this? And
Nice.
I, familiar with the concept of a VJ. But again, that was something I didn't know a ton about on the like technical level, but I was like, it's crazy what people do for that. When you're creating visuals and when you're playing them live. And I think it creates such a moment and atmosphere that people don't even necessarily like realize is such like integral part of the show. I was like, that is something that I want to do. And basically just like dove headfirst into it and was like, any opportunity I can get to do this, I'm just going to take it and run with it and learn as much as I can. And yeah.
And here we are. That's really awesome. It's interesting because it's a pretty unique trajectory, kind of. It's unique and not unique's maybe not the right word. I don't mean to like, say you're not unique, but I mean like in terms of like how you found it and how you got into it is pretty unique. That like, you kind of were interested in adjacent things, but then your partner kind of was like, hey, check this out. And then also like the fact that you are coming at it from like, okay, I want to be in this production world. I like this production world. I really want to be part of it. How can I be part of it? Okay, I don't want to do music. Okay, I don't want to do this. I want to do, stage. I want to do this. And it's like kind of that realization is really nice. Like I also had kind of a very similar trajectory where it's like I was going to parties my whole life. And in Israel, like the psytrance scene is like, the main electronic music scene. And it wasn't even that I saw visuals. It was more of just like, I want to be part of this scene. So what can I do? Okay, I know how to do video. Okay, I'll be a video. Okay, I'm really good at talking and selling shit. Okay, I'll be a promoter. And it's like, I just wanted to be part of it, And then when I realized that like, okay, this is like fun, but I need to like maintain and sustain a career. What is the thing that I'm really good at? And that was like, visual design. And then also seeing, this is where you're unique, because most people, they went to a show and they got their mind blown by something and they're like, okay, I want to do that, And I had the same experience. So it's interesting that did you have that experience, or was it just more of like you had the concept of what it is?
Yeah, nothing that like necessarily comes to mind. I have always had like an appreciation for when production is crazy. And I think one of those big ones for me is Spirit Lake at Halloween. And that level of production, I was like, okay, cool. I like creating. How can I become a part of this?
Right.
But no big moment I can really, I guess, define from like a show or anything. I've just always been, again, it's like everything that comes together to create that atmosphere and create those moments. Fascinates me. I think I'm very like big picture focused. So that's probably why I haven't had like one little tiny thing that stuck out to me where I was just like, wow, this whole thing is crazy. Let me be a part of it. So.
And, it's super interesting because it does seem like you're a big picture type of gal. And then like VJing in its core is pretty small picture. You know what I mean? Like the end result is obviously like very important, and like, you know, especially nowadays, it's like becoming more and more important. But like, it's not like it's not like art direction or like you know, I don't know, like design or like, you know, something that's like a big picture of like a whole show. It's much more like operational, you know, like, and you can obviously inside of your operation be big brain, you know, and kind of come up with this big concept. But it's interesting that, you know, maybe something inside of you also wants to perform and wants to kind of like have this live experience. You mentioned interactive installations. That was something that you were always fascinated by. What kind of things did you do before you got into the digital realm in terms of like immersive experiences and interactive experiences?
Interactive experiences, I think this is like not quite tied into art, but in college, in my first job out of college, I did human factors research, where I was doing a lot of research on automated driving. So I was hands-on through the entire process of getting people through an experiment, like doing entire lit reviews, just like the entire research process. And one of the things we did when I was in college in the lab that I worked in, we had a driving simulator. And I think that experience where we would put people in that, make them drive in it for like 40 minutes, an hour, whatever the experiment I was on did. And then just like looking at how memory works within the application of driving and a bunch of other stuff. I think how immersive that was and the kind of data we were able to take from it and see what the impact of that was something that drew me into like immersive experiences. Because there's things like, I guess this is like kind of a stretch, but it makes sense in my head when I think about how I got here. That driving simulator is an immersive experience. Driving in general is an immersive experience.
Of course it is.
It's just like recreating it on a different level, in a more like abstract creative space. So I think that's kind of how I ended up there. Was I was just like working with hard data and liked the outcome of that and liked being hands-on through that whole process. And, you know, still part of like creating an atmosphere and a space there for participants. So
super interesting. Yeah. I mean, you know, the actual, like we said, like it's sometimes the actual implementation of something and the result of something are very vastly different. Like the implementation of a driving simulator is interactive and immersive. The result is to train data, not to like wow people into like an experience. But it's cool that you managed to be inside of this space and realize within what you're doing what interested you and what excited you. You know, that's something that I find like, and you know, I sound like so old. I'm not that much older than you, but like, you know, it's a lot of young people struggle with, of like, you know, they get sucked into something or they get intrigued by something and then they can't really figure out what it is about that thing that they really love. You know, and then 10 years goes by and they're like stuck in this thing that they don't really like anymore. They get jaded towards it. So I think it's really nice that you managed to, you know, figure that out, or at least are figuring it out in a meaningful way. Awesome. So yeah, so VJing, you know, what is it like for you? Like, what is the experience as a fresh, unjaded, kind of like excited person in this realm? Like, what really gets you going when it comes to performing VJing, when it comes to, you know, creating content? And we're going to talk about TouchDesigner in a moment, but like, before we get into the more technical stuff, I just want to talk a little bit about, or hear from you, kind of like, what is it about the experience that excites you and kind of makes you feel good?
Yeah, I think it's just the overall, like for me, being involved in that production is such an immersive experience on top of like creating that immersive experience, because I think I get into such a flow state when I am VJing, because I want to be able to feel the music and like understand kind of the storytelling aspect of where is this set going? Like, how is this one song transitioning into the next kind of thing, to create that moment that people are going to remember, to make somebody feel something within that breakdown or that transition between songs, or that really big build. So I think it's like, it's almost just going into a flow state and just kind of locking in. And with doing a lot of the more like local gigs around here, and a lot of them being Night Therapy, my partner and I's production company, I play for 4 hours every time we do that. So nice. We're really locking in. We're really a part of it then. So I think that really yeah, it helps me get into a flow state and just become part of what I'm creating, I guess.
That's really
It's
potent.
almost like a Wizard of Oz feeling too. It's like I'm the man behind the curtain, kind of.
Ooh, like nobody knows what I'm
Making it
doing.
happen.
I love that. Like the mysteriousness of it, or like the
Yeah, where
like
it's like I
the,
still get that like excitement of like performing.
but you're not in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like almost like an extension of me as being
Totally.
perceived, but not quite like physically me.
It's
I guess.
somebody had a really good line for this. I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like it's being seen without being seen. Like it's being seen without being seen. Like you're literally, your work, an extension of you is like forefront center, but like you can be your little introvert and like hide in the shadows and like be a wallflower, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
I love that because like I am somebody, I have like an ego, right? I try to keep it in check as much as I can, but it's like my expression of ego is not to be seen. It's to be heard. I want people to hear me. You know what I mean? Like I don't want people to watch me as I'm dancing on stage, but I want people to like listen to my expression or like, you know, watch my artwork. You know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like a lot of times musicians, they're kind of musicians and specifically DJs, a lot of them are like that as well, but they're kind of forced to be like extroverted and like the ego of like, look at me, I'm now here. And like, you know, and it's like a totally, it's trapped and nothing against DJs or anything like that, but it's more of like, I don't think I would have been comfortable doing my art in front of people every single time. Like I like the fact that I can be in the shadows and still express myself outwards. And you know, I think as a VJ, like that's a really nice thing. And I don't know any VJs. Now I'm thinking about it more, but like I don't really know any VJs that want to be on stage. Maybe I know one or two, but like most 90% of them really are happy being in the shadows. And, you know, it's kind of an interesting thing that, you know, we were also talking about offline of kind of like who's, you know, interested in this kind of field and who's, you know, why is the field filled with so many specific types of people? And I think that like maybe a part of it is really this kind of thing that we're kind of getting into now of like, you're not at the forefront, you're not having the full attention, but yet you are kind of the most important thing in the show. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not your brand or your name that's important. It's your like directly your work that you're doing, right? Like good visuals are going to make people feel good. Bad visuals are going to ruin a show. You know, it's light blasting in your face. You know, it's like people don't recognize how important it is. And like, you know, so I don't know. It's interesting that it's like an attraction. Like, is that like, do you feel like that is something that you kind of always not struggled with, but kind of had inside of you? Like, you know, maybe even like, this is like a big stretch, but like maybe even like a sport, team sports is almost in that sense the same thing because you're like, it's not like you as like the star player, right? It's like you as the team. And you're all being watched together, but you're kind of like in the shadows of each other. I don't know. That's maybe weird, but like, do you know what? I don't know. That's a stretch.
Yeah,
but...
no, I know what you're getting at for sure. I think, especially in what you were like describing with a lot of VJs wanting to be more behind the scenes, like, I think I have a very like almost opposite, I guess, like personality type to that, where I'm super, super extroverted. Like, I feel like I have more of like, I guess what you would describe as like a stereotypical like DJ personality where like I've always been like alone time. I don't know who she is. And I've always been in, I guess I did theater when I was a kid. So I was comfortable like being on stage, and I guess sports kind of seeks into that too. And beach volleyball is a weird one where like, yes, you are on a team, but because you play doubles and your partner changes a lot, you do have to learn how to stand your own as an individual and learn how to kind of
my
carry.
theory sucked. Terrible.
No, I think I might just be like a little bit of a like the other side of the spectrum with that, because I think in the paths that I've crossed with most folks that I know do something similar or are involved in like production, doing visuals, like I think that is more so the norm. As to where I'm going to come in and like yap somebody's ear off and just like, and it feels so like such a switch from what I know and what I did for so much of my life in terms of like sports and just stuff I was involved with as a kid. And then even like before this, I hoop, I do flow arts, and I performed once doing that. And I really enjoyed that, but it was also like, there's also like an aspect of like, people are perceiving me, which is weird, but also like, it's weird because I think I like make it too meta and I'm like, oh my God, people are, I don't know. It's like a whole thing of that, but it's like, it's something I'm very comfortable with. So I think it's a cool journey that like personal journey I've been on of just like finding myself shifting towards, like you said, like operations and details, kind of looking at how does this thing I'm doing make up part of the big picture. And I'm learning all of the little detail things that I used to not enjoy, that I like now more so find myself focusing on because it demands my attention in terms of like problem solving and having to work with others. And I don't know, it's a very cool like little personal journey that I've been on, from the shift of like being very extroverted, finding myself almost performing in multiple senses, but now still performing, but as like an extension of myself rather than like me, I guess.
And do you find...
I don't think you're off at all. I think
no, it's okay.
I definitely think that's like the norm.
Do you find... It definitely is. Yeah. But do you find like, and it's not like, you know, not to make it personal, just really out of interest, do you find like that there's a different Beth in these two different places? And like, is there like a, you know, is there a more, like, do you feel more productive or more like, because you said before, like the flow state, right? Like you can be in the flow state while performing on stage and people are watching you and perceiving you, and you can be in the flow state when you're in the shadows and like kind of doing your own thing. And like, I would imagine that this is for almost any professional person who's doing any type of performance, the flow state is kind of the drug, right? It's kind of like the thing that everybody wants to be in, because that's when you're enjoying yourself the most. That's when you're most in tune with what you're doing and what's going on. And just, I mean, being in a flow state is being high, you know? So it's like, do you notice like almost like the difference at how Beth is in these two states? And like, you know, the difference between the kind of the extroverted kind of forefront and the more behind the scenes? Like, do you like one more than the other? You know what I mean? Like, can you pinpoint it? Could you quantify it?
They are so different from each other in terms of like VJing and doing like anything on that technical ops side is so much of like a cerebral experience where like I'm mentally locked in. I'm not just physically locked in, where I'm thinking more so than I am having to outwardly perform, like I am with volleyball, where I'm having to physically perform to like my peak where I can't nair, or like hooping where I am trying to create shapes and illusions with my body and my prop. Like it's, I guess, like the switch of having to be aware of different things where, you know, you're physically performing, you have to be aware of your face, you have to be aware of your body, you have to be aware of just where you are centered in like a physical space in terms of like what vantage points are looking at you and what you're trying to like invoke in the audience, rather than like when I'm kind of back in my little like troll hole on my computer doing visuals, like my face like immediately drops. Like there has been times where my partner Ross has been like, "Are you having fun?" Like, yes, I'm having a great time. I'm so locked in.
You're like, so locked in.
Where I'm like kind of dancing, but like my face is just like,
yeah.
So I think it's like just having to be locked in different ways and aware of different processes, with this being way more mental rather than like physical performance.
So interesting. It's so interesting. And it kind of goes back to like the DJ, right? They're not like doing a sport or something, but they have to be physically perceived. So they have to dance, they have to do things with their hands, they have to interact. It's such an interesting, like, it's such an interesting dichotomy of like the two different things. And like, it kind of like is a beautiful, esoteric kind of view of like the flow state and how achievable it is in so many different aspects and ways, right? You can literally like sit and meditate and be super still and get into a flow state, or you can like go onto a dance floor and dance like a crazy person or, you know, what if flow with with a flow stick or something, or with a hoop. So it's just like, I love that. Like, I feel like that's such a nice, first of all, it reminds me of like how real and true the flow state is, and like how it's like the real, it's like the attaining kind of some sort of, I'm a spiritual person, so I always make things spiritual, but like it helps you reach a higher power of some sort. Because like, you know, the way that I view things as being true or not is if they're like global things, you know, like, like the idea of God is kind of like, to me, a real thing because it exists in so many different places. So there's got to be something there. I don't know how or what or who or whatever, but it doesn't matter, you know. Same thing with like, breathing, like breathing as a natural way of like getting into like meditation or spiritual practice, you know. Dancing, you know, Sufism and different, you know, in Judaism, we shackle back and forth, like movement as a spiritual thing. I'm going off a tangent here, but like, you know, just it reminds me that the flow state is such a powerful thing, you know, especially because it can be achieved and attained in so many different places, and it's very exciting, and it kind of makes me feel really good that's, you know, you eloquently said it really well of like, I can be smiling and like on stage and being like really pretty and in my thing, but I can also be like super focused, blank face, and like the feeling inside of you is the same. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like a beautiful thing of like, you don't need, and again, like no judgment to anybody who is a performer. My wife's a performer. She dances. She's a dancer. So like, I have a very understanding of that kind of like ethos and mentality. But you don't need other people to perceive you and to acknowledge you in order to express yourself and be in a flow state.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more so just like a connection of your mind with, I guess in this case, like for me, it's the music and frequency. Then creating the, I guess, like actual visual that I feel matches with that. And then with dancing, with any kind of performing, that flow state is how is my body connected to what I'm hearing or what I need to be doing, I guess. I think it's more of just like a personal connectedness with whatever task or thing is at hand, more so than anything else, for sure. Yeah,
it's individual. Wow, nice. Okay, so, you know, we're talking a lot about kind of like different, we're getting very esoteric here, which I love. But let's get more serious here. TouchDesigner. Woo, TouchDesigner. Woo, TouchDesigner. Please tell me, you know, you mentioned that your partner introduced you to it. You know, you don't have a technical background in terms of like coding or development. You don't even have really a like, Adobe programs are like design, but they're not like sculpting or 3D design or like or even like generative textures and like the idea of proceduralism. They're like anti-proceduralism, you know, they're like super destructive, and you know, so it's very interesting that you were introduced to this thing by your partner and then decided to like, I'm going to dive into this. So like, please like tell me what was that like, and you know, why, Beth, why?
I like the challenge that TouchDesigner presents, because I think like my introduction to TouchDesigner, I didn't really know anything about any kind of other real-time programs. I like sort of knew about like 3D programs like Blender, Cinema 4D. I tried Blender once for one day and I was like, I don't understand how this workflow works. So I like that went away very quickly and I dove into TouchDesigner more. And I think like now along the way, I've heard the TouchDesigner is like very intimidating for folks that are coming into something for the first time. And I think maybe that just speaks to how I like to make things hard for myself. And if I can figure that out, I can figure something else out. So let me make it hard for myself first to get into something. And so I think maybe that's why TouchDesigner intrigued me, because it's like, you open TouchDesigner, it's this blank slate. And it's just like, what do I do with this?
You get some jelly beans, but like,
yeah. But like, it's just like, what do I do with this? What is all of this terminology that's being thrown at me? Like, what? And that's super intriguing to me because that, like, right away, I was like, this is a platform that I can do so much with, aside from just making stuff that looks cool. Like, I can, it's such a powerful tool. It's got such a vast reach that I think that was something that really intrigued me about it. Especially the idea too that like, I think in a logical way, but I like, and I think that's something that kind of hindered me from like being creative in the past. I guess in terms of like what your more traditional methods of art would be in terms of just like painting, sculpting, things like that, because I like the problem solving aspect that TouchDesigner immediately threw me into. It was just like, how do I have to logically think about this to create something abstract or create to be creative, I guess. So it's that idea of using the logical side of my brain to be creative. And that was something I loved. And I think coming from a research background, the idea that I was like constantly going to have to be problem solving and like looking for ways around things or thinking outside the box was something that appealed to me a lot. And even just the interface itself of TouchDesigner. Oh my God. I love the nodes. I think like in thought webs like
we
that.
Got a node girl here. We got a node girl here.
It's me. And like, I think in these thought webs of like, it's a main idea. It has a label. It connects out to all these other things that are related. And then if you like zoomed into one of those little thought bubbles, that's where all of the information lives. And just that node-based network immediately made sense in my brain. I was like, oh my God. So basically I plug this thing into this thing and it does this. And then if I need to do something more, I go further into this and further into this one node and can play with all these little details. And that's where all the information is housed rather than like overwhelming myself with everything just being there. Yeah. So that was like, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is how my brain works. So
I love that.
Love that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Even like you said, oh, go ahead.
No, please you.
And even like you said, like I don't come from any kind of programming background where like I tried coding like in college and I was like, this is horrible. Dyslexia might play into that too, but, and even after college, like I was like looking into going to grad school and I was like, I need to teach myself Python and R so I can do more data refinement. And like sitting there and learning Python when I did like Code Academy was like my dad teaching me math at the dinner table when I was a kid, where I was just like, I don't get it. Yeah. And then TouchDesigner came around and I like sat down with, I think it was Lake Heckerman or Ben Heim. It was one of their YouTube videos. Serious? I sat down.
With the tutorials. Yeah.
Yeah, with one of their tutorials, and I sat down and watched it, and it was going through, I can't remember at the time if it was Python or GLSL, but sitting down and just like breaking down the math and just being able to like physically see what my code was doing, where I was like, oh, this isn't, it makes sense finally. So on top of like that, TouchDesigner is a programming language, like a visual programming language in and of itself. It's such a friendly environment to actually learn how to code too, especially if you're somebody like me where like I really struggle with, I think numbers in particular. I have a hard time with like numbers are flipping. I'm writing down numbers that aren't there, the whole dyslexia spiel. But being able to sit down and see visually what that's doing as I'm writing those lines just made it all click to me. And then seeing how that fits into how like a node is made or like how the processes like within a node works. Like I was like, oh, this is crazy. If somebody had like taught me this years ago, this would have made perfect sense to me. So I love that aspect of it too, where now like something that I was like so afraid of and had such a hard time with every time I tried to do it, like clicks. Yeah. I was like, oh, maybe I wasn't so bad at math ever.
I relate to so much that you're saying, it's, dyslexia or not, but it's just like, I hate math, but I realize that like math is not really that bad if you can just utilize things that you need, like, logic. Logic is really where it's at, right? Like adding, subtracting, and then like when you think about the way that nodes are built in TouchDesigner, they're built in a visual way. So adding and subtracting is not like numbers. You're adding and subtracting colors and like black and whites and blending modes. And then and then you look at the actual pixels, and that becomes data, and the data can go, and it's like the way that it all kind of interacts with each other. It's such an amazing environment to create and build and problem solve in. Like you said, it's not just to make visuals. It's a complete environment to create anything to do with media, interactive, immersive, server, operations, systems. It's really completely open-ended. Anything to do with an input and an output to do with media and data is a really good place to do that. So you really kind of got that nailed on the head. And then what you were saying about being intimidated by code and then kind of seeing how the nodes connect with each other and that kind of clicking for you. I had the same experience where, and I think I've said this story before, but I found TouchDesigner because I was doing a Unity workshop in a festival in Rome, and then I happened to see like these two nerds playing with TouchDesigner, and I'm like looking over their shoulder, and I'm like, what are these nerds doing? And I'm like, and I just had my Unity workshop, and I hated it because it was like all C#, and it was like the interface is like After Effects, it's like a normal workflow interface.
Yeah.
I'm like, and again, another one of these stupid things with all the fucking parameters, and I have to find the thing in the menu and go through the thing. And then we're learning C#, and I'm like, oh, like the results were cool, but I was just like I was almost like maybe I shouldn't get into real time. Maybe I should just do loops and visuals. And then these two nerds, Alina and Danny, Orali, who they should be on, but they're too busy. They were, they were like just going at it, and I was like, what are these guys doing? They look so into what they're doing. And then I like look over the shoulder and I see all these like spaghetti nodes and everything connected, and I'm like, guys, what is this? And they're like, oh, this is a visual scripting. I'm like, visual scripting? What does that mean? Like, you can do code with your eyes and your visual?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I was just spending all this time in C#. Like, what is this node thing? So it was like such it was such a mind switch. And then like the more that you get into it, the more you realize that like, code, even though it's presented as a linear kind of page and, different modules, when you approach it as like a network, as like a node network, it becomes something that's much more akin to like how we think and look at things, of like making connections, right? Like making connections, like your brain connecting different things and things firing. And there's like, this one's not even connected to this one, but it's sending information from this one, and it's sending back and forth, and it's referencing, and just being able to see it all, like you said, and zoom in and zoom out creates such a deeper understanding of systems, and this is something I always tell people. I didn't have to tell you, you figured out yourself, you're very smart, but like TouchDesigner is the best place to start because, now that you know TouchDesigner, you can literally go to any other visual scripting language, maybe it be shaders, Notch, Unreal Blueprints, Houdini, whatever, and you'll have such a good understanding of the logic of how these things work. Yeah. And on top of that, whenever you need to build something, you are building it from the core of it. So if you need to build a reaction diffusion system, you don't have a reaction diffusion node, you actually have to build it. When you're building, a feedback system, it's not a feedback post-process effect. It's like a proper feedback system. So, learning these things, every time you learn something, you're actually exponentially engaging with your psyche and making it smarter and smarter just by creating and making and having to figure things out. Whereas, like, if you just had modules that make things look cool, you're going to have a good result. Don't get me wrong. The results are going to be cool. But you're not benefiting your ability to understand things, or you are, but it's in a different capacity.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think it's awesome that you've been picking it up, and I would love to, like, as we're talking now a little bit, just look a little bit at your work, because I think that it's you've only been doing this for a few months, and it kind of speaks volumes to your abilities, or your budding abilities,
thank you.
Yeah. So, and while we're talking about it, I'd love to like kind of mention like, you know, you're using a lot of RayTK, which is Tommy Etkin's amazing plugin. We had him on the podcast. Check out his episode. You know, just kind of like the way that works is very intriguing and interesting as well, because it's all, you know, GLSL based shaders, or I should say ray marching shaders. But instead of having to do it as code, you're giving the ability to do it as nodes. So it starts to go back to this, to the thing that we're talking about of, you know, being able to visualize and see things in a different fashion. Did you do dailies? Is that like, because I see 90 out of 100. Did you do
I started doing that.
You started doing it?
I started doing that. So I think I did a little over a month straight of doing it every day. And then as I started to, because like part of me doing the dailies was to kind of build my social media presence a little bit, because at the time, and still, like I still am freelancing. And as I've gotten more clients and my projects have gotten a little bit more intensive in terms of like what I would do for like a daily, and just like life happens, things happen. So
I love this one.
I've really like forced myself to lock in for, I think, like I said, it was a little over a month, and that gave me the foundation to be able to do more complex things. And then I was like, okay, now I can be a little bit nicer to myself and stare at this screen for as long as I am racking my brain to figure these things out. And it gives me, you know, it gave me more time to be able to step away and, like I said, be doing client work, be working on stuff for shows, doing more show prep, things like that, as I guess my career thus far has grown. You know, life gets in the way, other projects get in the way. So, but yeah, doing the daily was like, cool. I want to establish myself on here. I want to get in the habit of just learning this tool so I can not feel like foreign to it when I like sit down and try to do something with it. I want to be able to create the things I have in my head, or like take inspiration from something I've seen and like be able to build it without feeling like I'm constantly banging my head against the wall, I guess.
Super important. You know, I still have that problem of like, you know, especially when you just get into a new software, you kind of have to like, what are the processes to be able to figure out how to do the things that I want to do in my head? And it's like, you know, in the 3D software, it's a lot more straightforward because you just kind of like put the thing in the thing and add some lights, you know? Not always, obviously, but like, you know, when it comes to generative stuff, there's a lot of how do you get the image out of your head into the thing? So doing dailies is a great idea. And also, you know, it paid off because that's how I got to be introduced to you, and now we're here. So it like worked out really well for all of us.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, definitely not something, this is cool. Definitely not something that you should like feel like you have to do, or, you know, excuse me, be beholden to it. But if you can do it, then you should. Are these glyphs yours? Like these little, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's something I built out just like TouchDesigner, like without RayTK. It's just
a grid.
What is it? I think it's just a grid, that I put some text on top of and did some post-processing on, and then brought that into RayTK as what is it, the triplanar projection or whatever onto a plane.
Nice. Super cool.
Yeah, so it's a project within a project. I tend to do that a lot. I'll build a project within a project.
The way to do it. Definitely. Lovely.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. Yeah. So, you know, we kind of mentioned a little bit before, but like the TouchDesigner community, you know, is a very unique community. It's a very open, loving, accepting community. You know, it doesn't matter what sex you are, what color you are, you know, if you have dreadlocks or not, you're always going to be welcome in that community. And it's a very powerful one. You know, it's a very powerful one because of the amount of smart, high-level people that are in it, that are willing to impart information. So, you know, again, like the theme of this episode is kind of getting the fresh and unjaded eyes on this experience, because we're all so fucking jaded after years. You'll get there, don't worry. But please tell me a little bit about your experience of like TouchDesigner community, and kind of how it's been beneficial to you, or not, but I imagine so.
Yeah, like I said earlier, everybody I've run into, had an encounter with in person or online, have been like absolutely wonderful and are just like, everybody seems to love doing what they're doing as much
Yeah.
as I am, even though like I'm so new. Like everybody seems to still have such a spark and such a passion for what they do and are just like excited to talk about it. And like I love to talk about my niche little subjects. I am a yapper, I will yap, and I love when other people will get in on that too. So talking to people about TouchDesigner that are also doing it has been just like, everybody's like, let me brain dump about this thing and then we'll like go on and on about it. And I love that. And just especially like being a beginner and like, as much as I like, my background is still tech adjacent, doing human factors, but not necessarily being a tech guy. I am very much so not a computer guy. Just being able to like ask people these basic questions of like, I guess, for example, like I just got, everybody and their mother has heard me talk about this lately. I just got this new laptop. I've always been a Mac user. I got a PC. It's a Razer. Tommy Etkin, I guess, suggested that to me. And me not knowing how Windows works, I have been running into all these issues with it. And I sent Tommy like a panic DM and I was like, hey, can you hop on a Zoom with me and just help me figure out the settings of this thing? And he like was like, yeah, I have time this week, and like popped on a Zoom and helped me work through just even like basic things like making sure I have the right drivers set up, making sure I have the right settings going where I need to have them and things like that. And that was huge. Thank you so much, Tommy. You really saved me with so many of those
We
things.
love you, Tommy.
We do. And also for creating RayTK, that was crazy.
Yeah,
Use it all
whatever.
the time.
I'm sure.
But even just like exchanging project files with folks, there's quite a few people, wrote visuals. I don't know how to say your Instagram name. I'm so sorry. Deborah's Plexi. And then also Anthony DuPoint AV,
Nice.
taught me so much of their little tips and tricks of AAVJ, of just VJing in general, and
Nice.
little things within that, and just like being so willing to share that knowledge and like being so encouraging. And there's been so many people that have just been so supportive and encouraging of me being so new within this, and then also just like being able to share in their excitement of their like bigger shows that they're getting to play, and seeing their work grow is so exciting for me too, because like there are so many people that I have in this world that I get to look up to. And all the time I'm like constantly like, I talk to people that have the biggest, most wrinkly brains ever all the time, and I feel like very, very grateful that I constantly get to like rub brain cells together with so many like incredible people all the time. Like
I love that.
I don't know, it just feels good, and it's cool to be a part of a community again that is so open and willing to just like throw up how excited they are about what they're doing, and get to like just collaborate and grow alongside them. So yeah, that's super cool. I love that.
It's awesome. It's awesome, and it's
Yeah.
and you know I'm joking about the jadedness. Like that's probably just me. I'm just a jaded person, but you know it's it is really nice to see and be reminded of like the power of community and how sharing people are. You know, like, and this is not like I'm not like trying to toot my own horn, but like I always try to help people as much as I can, and
Yeah.
like I forget that like what you're describing of like getting a view into somebody's brain is like the thing that I love about talking to my friends in the industry and like, you know, in collaborators and whatever, because it's like I get to see into their brain and like, you know, get to ask them questions about things. But it's like, yeah, many people have that experience with me, and it's like that's really special, because it's not that I'm special. It's that people are interested in what I have to say or what I have to teach, like the same way that I'm interested in what people have to show me and teach me. And that's like a really it's a testament to like how collaborative and how open the system is, because if it was more of a competitive cutthroat thing, then none of us would have that. We would all be missing out on that, right? From lower to higher to middle. So I think that's really awesome that's kind of the ethos of TouchDesigner, of, you know, this is a open-ended framework, so why not be open-ended about the techniques and the concepts? You know, and I feel like it's similar in the motion graphics industry as well, where there's like a kind of like an idea of like the Andrew Kramers of the world of giving out their, free tutorials and things like that. And the idea is like, I heard this in a podcast recently, XR Motion podcast, shout out XR Motion, a really cool podcast, motion graphics podcast. And they were interviewing this guy, super cool guy, like a really high level visual artist and big NFT artist, really, really cool stuff. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he's great. And he was saying like, his moniker is Octane Jesus. He's like he's a known Octane guy. Yeah. That I remembered. But he was saying like he never questioned in his mind for a moment that if he like gives out information to people that it's going to be bad for him. The opposite is true, is that the more that he gives out information, then the more he's elevating that information. And then therefore he is now being able to create like a baseline of information that's going to come back to him. It's a karmic kind of like energetic thing. The more you give into something, the more you get from something. So it's like that. And he was like, further along in his career and saying how that's been so true for him. And, I feel the same way, and I'm sure so many others feel the same way. So, it's beautiful to kind of see that happen and get that feedback. And I'm really happy that you experienced the same thing. Before we jump into your set, I'd love to just ask you one more question about generative art, kind of like, and usually I save the esoteric stuff for the end, but I feel like you're pretty cool, so we can kind of jump into it now. But generative art, like, what does it mean to you? Like, what is it? And again, fresh perspective. Like, what is kind of the idea of generative art to you? Like, you realize what it is, right? That it's like this kind of based around nature and simulation and kind of like things that exist in our world that we're pulling in to the digital space to kind of create art with and generate art with, I should say. The beauty behind math, the sacredity behind geometry, the ghost in the machine, like whatever you want to call it, like the simulation theory, like all these things kind of tie into the artwork that we're involved in. So, what does that mean to you? Because you kind of came at it very, very fresh and very like almost happenstance, right? Like you're like, TouchDesigner. Oh, TouchDesigner does generative art? Okay, I'll do generative art. Which is so cool. I love that. Like, I love that that trajectory. But like, yeah, what does it mean to you? What is it kind of, how's it touched you, and what do you think about it?
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of parts. There's a lot of ways I could go with this. I think like personally, just creating art in general, again, with such a logical process behind it, has been almost like a reflection of, I guess, where I've been and now how I've made it here, because I have done so much that's based in research, but I just had something that was like nagging at me that I wanted to create. I wanted to be a part of something bigger, but I didn't necessarily know how to do that. So I think this has been representative of that, along with the just like lifelong learning journey that I hope to continue on, in terms of like, this is something that I found, I loved it, I threw myself into it, and it's teaching me how to slow down and look at details and how to problem solve in ways that I normally wouldn't do, in terms of like now straight up like having to look at like a script and going through and having to debug that, and just trying to like push the boundaries of what we know, I guess, in terms of like bending visual perception and things like that. And again, I think that does speak to my background in terms of like doing human factors and a lot of applied cognitive psychology stuff, where I have such a fascination in how we perceive things, and I want to see what I can do with that, and what is gonna force somebody to look at it and just not be able to look away. Like, what are those little things that I can play on, and how we just biologically perceive things. And I don't know, it's just this big amalgamation of, I've made it to this point and I'm using all of these things that I know and expanding on them in ways I like never thought possible for myself. So I think it's really representative of that, and just my love, again, of just being able to create and be a part of something bigger than me. And in terms of that just being a production, like the thing that's bigger than me, being the production. And being able to create those key moments that people remember when they leave a show, and make somebody else feel something because I am feeling so locked into the things that I'm creating and the things that I'm performing, and just being able to share that and create something that's immersive and overwhelming and memorable for somebody. So, you know, representative of myself as well as being a part of this bigger thing that I get to share with others. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Really beautifully said and well thought out. I really like that. You know, it is bigger. Art is something that is bigger than us, you know, expression from a place of intention, from a place of authenticity, is super powerful, especially when it's through the guise of generative art, when it's, you know, and not to say anything negative about other art, but like, especially when it's through the guise of frequency, of data, of channels, of operations, of, you know, sine waves and noises and patterns and things that are kind of like, you know, algorithms that are part of our reality. You know, you're really creating a amazing feedback. And, you know, one of the things that I started doing really early on was kind of like, you know, the audio reaction, of course, because that's like very obvious for VJing, right? Because you have audio frequency coming in. The audio frequency is creating the image or manipulating the image in a way. So it's like a direct connection. You're creating a beautiful synergy between the music and the visuals, not just through your performance, but through literal like nature and reality itself. The frequency of the sound is what is being perceived and is what is perceiving the visual. But then, you know, with my wife, she's a dancer. We used to have this really awesome show where she does motion capture, live motion capture, and would dance with a motion capture suit. And so she's dancing to the music. The audio is coming into my system, so I'm getting like auto reactive. Her movement is coming into my system, so I'm getting her movement. And then all those things are kind of talking into one thing. And it's kind of like the same thing as an interactive installation where you're capturing a user and kind of projecting the user back onto themselves in a interesting way or in a feedback way. You're creating some sort of like mirror into like another universe, you know? And I just love the idea of like creating a, you know, I don't know how your experience is with dance floors, but my experience with dance floors is always like, this is like a, you know, it's a temple, it's a holy space. It's a, you know, it's a you know, it's a torus field of energy, like, you know, a spaceship. You know, it's the center of the dance floor. The sound is kind of going all the way around. People are dancing. It's like creating an energy field around us, and then they're stomping into the earth. The earth is coming up, down from the earth, up and above us and around, and creates like a field. So, like when you think of it like that, then the visuals are part of that, right? Because they're shooting light into the torus field and kind of manipulating it. And the sound is the same way. It's shooting audio in the torus field and creating this manipulation of it. So when you tie those things together and then tie in the movement of a dancer into it, or tie in the interactive of an audience member into it, then you're just like elevating it so much, and it's so potent, you know? And then you don't even have to be in a flow state. You just are existing inside of this thing, you know? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, definitely. And actually, that was like the big idea when I went into To the Moon a few weeks ago. Was one of the pieces that I brought there was an interactive dance floor where we had a camera set up right above the DJ booth, and it was just taking in you know, the crowd, and it was audio reactive, so it's changing with the music, but also like we had all these lines that were connecting everybody in the crowd, and like the more you interacted with it, like the more like displacement and feedback it was going through. So we went into one of the projects at To the Moon with that idea, and we've done that for night therapy as well. So, you know, you want to be, you want, not only are you like being all up in the experience, you are the experience, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was something really cool that we did for To the Moon when we were there. So I love that take on it, and like that's something that we ran with recently. So
love it. I love it. You know it already. You figured it out already. All right. Let's jump into your what you have prepared for us today.
Cool.
One thing, can you just press that little hide button on the Video Ninja? Thank you.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, like, take it away. I'm gonna try and let you go as much as my brain allows me to not interrupt you. And yeah, I'm excited to see what you have ready for us.
Cool. Yeah. Let me put my eyeballs on here so I can see what I'm
Ooh,
doing.
glasses. Now we're getting serious.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just talked to you like without being able to see anything that whole time. But now
Yeah,
I can see.
it's better.
So
Better you can't see me.
cool. I created a little template for myself just so I don't have to like throw in all the little details while I'm like do all my little setup while we're getting into this. But
No, it's super important to have
that was
templates.
great. Yeah.
It's one of those
Now we
things that I
wait.
wish I got a like more of a like a process for, because I'm so lazy
it.
and like I just can never make a template. But it's something that
I don't
saves so much
actually
time.
use this all the time.
Oh, you just do it
This
for the
is
show?
straight up for right now. I didn't want y'all to deal with
Gotcha.
me just like doing all this little
Gotcha.
it's not much, but like
Cool.
so basically this is my normal setup. This is how I start. So this is a RayTK patch. So if I go outside of the project file, I drag and drop the talks for RayTK in, because having all the little lines that attach itself to that inside the network stress me out. So I drop it outside the project file, and then my basic setup is just our Raymarch render, basic camera, basic point light, and then just the post process display where RGB key for black background, and then my null, and this little constant boy that I use for it's just setting up resolution. And then if I have to change something quickly on the fly,
Nice.
I like to have that. Yeah.
That's
and
very
see.
Paqueta 12-esque.
Thank you.
You know Paqueta 12, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's probably where I got that from, to be
For
fair.
sure.
Like,
It's where everybody got
that was definitely not like mine. So.
No. The resolution in the constant is a 100% a Paqueta 12 thing. And it's like
it's like the amount
every
of times I've had to
episode.
change ratios on the fly, and like yeah,
for sure.
it's just like easier to have it there. So, and he is one of the biggest brains in TouchDesigner
He's the
world.
best.
So any little tip that I can get from him, I will.
Hell yeah.
I'm sure that's where that's from.
Nice.
But let's see. And here I basically just start with pulling up a basic SDF, where in RayTK to open up your palette, I think it's Alt R, but I have it Control R on my setup just because I think that's easier. And I just go through and pick something from SDF, and there's so many cool things in here, like these chains I love to do stuff with. I've been big on the gyroid wave lately, but let me see. Start with something like super basic. Everything is a Taurus under the hood. Honestly.
For sure.
It's all Taurus. Just hook that up, and yeah, I like to have mine on the y-axis like that, and then I wrote notes for myself so I don't forget what I normally do, like this normal setup as if I'm doing something with a Taurus. Just set my radius and my thickness for that, and then it disappears. Love that. Then with a Taurus, I like to invert them because I think that makes my little donut thing way more interesting. So I will throw an invert in here, just hook that up. And oh wow, this camera is actually working. Whenever I do anything with like an invert, I think this is standard practice, just fisheye camera. Get that good wide angle.
Ooh,
yep,
nice.
there we go. And I usually set it at like 2 or 2.3. I love using a Taurus for stuff because, like I said, everything is always Taurus under the hood. It's not always, but like you can do so much with just an inverted Taurus.
Taurus is life.
Always. So, I don't know, throw it into something like a bend. I always work on like a very blank slate. I don't tend to go into anything with too much like of an idea. Maybe I'll like look for inspiration somewhere, and just be like, oh, I like the coloring of this, or like I'll go in with like, I like a song, I want to make something audio reactive to the vibe of this, but I never really have too much of an idea like when I'm going into something. So I don't know, play around with these. What do I normally do? Yeah, in this bend, it's just bending the torus. I think it gives it just like a little bit more depth. Let's see. I don't know. Something like that. And then always a twist. This is my basic setup when I'm like doing something with like a torus or like a Mobius ring or something like that. Just get something really basic and then just kind of like run with it from there. So I don't know, with a twist. Ooh, that's nice. I'll keep that. Cool. And I already like how the shadows are playing out on this. So we're going to vibe with that.
Sick.
Yeah, and I like to get a feel with like how things move before I actually start animating them. And then I tend to do like my animation, my audio reaction last. So with that, I don't know, this needs a pattern or something. Or maybe it needs a Mobius ring. Who knows? Let's try that. Because this really is like TouchDesigner for me, because I have like zero foundation in this, is like a lot of just like I'm throwing stuff at the wall and I'm seeing what sticks.
Even people with foundation, that's kind of how most of us approach it.
Cool. I'm glad it's not just me. Because it's just like, I don't know, it's fun to see like, well, I don't know. That's wild. Sure. Turn that all the way up. Cool. Yeah. I like the texture of that, but now I want it to do something better. Big fan. I know lots of people lately have been doing stuff with all of these like hexagon patterns. It just, I don't know. I like it. Makes it look like snaky and cool. So I like to give it something textured like that after the fact and use... I always do my hexagons with a round too. I don't know. I think maybe, oh my gosh, what's his name? Matthew. His handle is like Breakcore321. I think I think I picked that up from him. He always does that. Let's see. Maybe it hates the round. It does. Cool. So
what does
maybe
the round do?
It. The round just like I think it just extrudes the pattern a little bit
onto the first input?
Whatever that first input is. Yeah.
Interesting.
Again, to be straight up, I don't have a ton of... I look at TouchDesigner a lot of how I look at like a math equation where like I know these certain things need to be there, but I don't necessarily like understand the why. But I can know like I can interchange this or I can interchange this. So we're learning the why along the way.
Yeah,
but
that's the beauty.
Let's see. Maybe I can do this with a plane. Oops, Alt R. Plane and a combine. But yeah, bear with me as I like talk through how I normally do this.
So far, so good.
Oh, doesn't produce.
Doesn't like that.
Amazing. So now we're gonna do this.
Convert it.
What is that? Float to vector, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that feels right.
Oh.
Still hates that. Why?
What does it say?
Does not support field producing vector values.
I thought I just gave you. Is it a field to a vector instead of a float? I don't know.
It shouldn't be. I don't know. Cool. Well, we won't use that then. Yeah. When I hit walls like that, it's just like now what? And I'll throw like another SDF in somewhere where. Ooh, actually, what's that sphere grid? I know that's new, and I haven't. I get so excited when there's new SDFs added.
Yeah, you get to play with things.
Yeah, the torus grid and the sphere grid have been like so much fun to do stuff with lately. So I've really been playing a lot with those. What was I doing? And combines are such a basic part of this, because like it's literally how you combine things, but all the different like combined modes and then being able to animate all of that is like, I think, such a cool thing.
Yeah, super powerful.
Ooh, big stair union guy. I love a stair union. Let's see. And usually this is like, I will go in and use the good old like ABS time.seconds to animate my offset.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, weird. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's super weird. Cool. Love that. We'll run with that for now. I still feel like this needs some sort of like pattern, or maybe it needs another SDF too.
Do you not use those hexagonal grids as a texture?
You can, yeah. And I know I've done that a lot in the past, but with the Mobius twist, I almost am like, is that going to be too much texture happening?
Right.
I don't know. Let's just throw some more SDFs in here and see what happens.
Let's go.
And I'm so weird about having everything spaced out on here. I know everybody has their own little like quirks and how they like their networks set up, but let's see. Let's get both mine. This polyhedron has been one that I've like enjoyed doing stuff with lately too. Now, where is it? Let's see.
Oh,
there it is. Okay, cool. Let's do this, because that's going to be stacked in the middle with that sphere grid. Yeah, dude. Let's repeat it. Let's use this log puller repeat. I don't exactly know what that means, but I know it has yielded something cool when I've used it in the past, so. Or maybe it hates being inside of a torus right now. Yeah, it definitely does. Sick. Hello? Okay, cool. We'll try something different. Let's just do it. Modular polar. Amazing. There we go. And can play around with the repetitions of how many times this thing is repeated on your z-axis. So you see it's giving it a bunch more sides when it comes out from beneath there. Let's see. We put it on the y-axis, it does something different. Ooh, that actually is kind of interesting.
It's cool.
So I'm going to change that back to the Z and have that start moving towards us and maybe give us like a little bit of a tunnel effect. You can hear my computer is starting to sound like it's like taking off right now. The fans on it are
I can't
so
hear
loud.
it, but I can imagine.
It's so loud. Okay,
It's
cool.
funny.
Let's play around with this. Oh. Okay, interesting. Okay, that's moving it that way. What is this doing? Okay. There we go. Okay. Kind of want... That's too many. Let's change this back to like 4. There we go.
Nice.
Okay, I like that weird shape that's happening in
Yeah,
the
it looks
middle
really
there.
nice. It's like a interesting blob of magic.
Yeah, I feel like there's a patch I've been working on for a little while, and it's got like a weird moving ball in the middle of it. I probably am just like constantly thinking about that patch. So my brain is like, let me make a torus with a moving ball in the middle of it.
I love it.
Cool. So, want to change the mode on this too. Probably just, no, I hate that. Hate that. Cool. Ooh, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, let's keep that like that. And then let's get through. Let's add some animation to stuff. Let's see. What did I like that was happening here? That's okay. That's just gonna do that. Okay. Maybe the bend. Ooh.
That's cool.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Until it hits the camera, it's nice.
Yeah. So what is that? We'll call that 0.7, 0.7, and negative 0.7.
If
Okay.
you can mirror that, would be cool too. You know what I mean? Because it's like I'm going. Maybe
Go
I
ahead.
know. No, because it's like when you went to like a certain value, it was going like only on one side. Be cool if that would be like mirrored in the horizontally,
Yeah. So let's see.
but it might
If I
fuck
throw
everything
it-
up.
No. This is what we find out. We fuck around.
Yeah.
We find out. We do this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's try this mirror quad and see. What are you gonna do?
Oop.
Oh, we have a blob.
But now animate it.
There we go. Okay. Are we playing with the amount? I despise that this comes up with a ramp always. I'm like, please. The way it like snaps back, like I think sparks some sort of something in my brain where I'm like, why? Cool. Keep that at that, and then just to like keep the bend between. Actually,
Kind of. Maybe
is it
can you
gonna
make
get in front of the
the
camera?
mirror? No, I think because you added that mirror, it's pretty good.
Love
But
that.
can you make the mirror like on the XY instead of the ZX? Yeah.
See, XY is making this.
But I kind of like how it's growing out of the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Cool.
can't rotate that.
Like that moment's cool because it's like coming out of the camera, but
Yeah.
like when it here that shit's cool as
Yeah.
fuck. No, I don't know. It looks super cool.
No, I
Oh,
like that.
oh.
Oh, that's okay. So this is where we throw in a mouth chop here, just to like limit the values between. What is that? Negative 0.8. What did I say? 0.7 was where
Keep
it started
going.
overlapping the camera.
Yeah. And do a -1. Also on the from. Right? I think you're going into
You're
the
right.
-1.
Thank you. Perfect. Yeah. So now we're not going to get our camera all blocked. Love that.
Perfect.
Maybe... Actually, we'll leave that for now. We'll play with that for now.
It's pretty cool.
Because like I said, this is just me throwing stuff at the wall here. Because I always save my colors for last because I like to see how the shadows like
Smart.
just kind of naturally place themselves like on whatever this like, I don't know. In my brain it's clay. If I like touched it, it's clay. Whatever this like clay like material is.
It is totally like clay.
Yeah. I've been big in the metal for a while, but maybe I'll not do something metallic this time. We'll see how it ends up.
You're
I
talking
feel
to
like this is
a big
backwards
metal
that I
fan
always
here.
do like, yeah. Let's see. Whenever I do my colors, like what my material looks like, I always start with like a rim contribute. I don't know. I think it makes it pop and makes it look nice. Wow, that's such a forbidden phrase I just used in design world. Make it pop.
Make it pop. For sure.
My clients are like, make it pop. I'm like, make what pop? Even though I just
it.
said that myself. Let's see. And I like love to live in the realm of like purples. For whatever reason, purple is. There we go.
That's looking good.
Ooh, okay. Interesting. Okay. And then if you hit Alt-Shift-R, it opens up this little like menu for this node where it gives you all these options just to pull like your diffuse and your specular. Just pull in a good old Nair. Little things are. I've never said that out loud. Is that how you say that? Or Nair?
Voronoi? What is it?
This guy. Or a Nair?
Oh, I don't know. The method of the shading.
Yeah, the words I've never said out loud to anybody.
I feel like that's like one of those things that you don't ever have to say out loud, so it doesn't matter how you say it. I think it's pronounced Arnerar.
Let's see. That's. Yeah, I can live with that. Or, yeah, I can live with that.
I like it.
And then specular, because everything somehow always ends up metallic when I'm making something.
Yeah, metallic's cool. There's nothing wrong with metallic. I'm a big metallic fan. It's just more things are happening. And also, it makes things more round, gives it more depth and more shape. You could definitely get like the same effect from like ambient occlusion or something, but like really like shaders, GLSL is not like an ambient occlusion type of thing. It's much more of like a specular highlight kind of like rim light kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, nice. Cool. Yep.
There we go.
All metallic.
Love it. That looks pretty fucking cool.
Thank you.
The green I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest. The green is a little bit like flat. I don't know, maybe.
Green? Let's
no, not the color, not the color. I like the color. Just the way that it's shaded, something about it is a little bit flattening.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think like even just looking at this and like going through and just this is how I like throw my
Small
ideas
tweaks.
at the wall type thing. I think something I struggle with when just trying to come up with an idea right off the bat is depth, like creating depth within a scene.
Yeah.
And this one needs some sort of depth or movement behind it. But yeah, this is kind of how I throw stuff at the wall and have it stick. I know Jesse Jan talked about Pablo Bear. He talked about how he pulls a depth map and will overlay that. That's something I love. I've been playing around with a lot. I think that can give something a lot of depth or just playing around with it. I love to play around with post-processing and just doing lots of comps of displacement, and sometimes I'll pull in different, like, what are they called? HDRIs and like compositing those on top of things.
Environment maps,
Because, like I said, oops, all metal. But yeah, that's kind of the idea without, let's see how far I can like get outside this without, not very far. Cool. That's why we do 2.3. But yeah, let's see here if I can do some more movement here of this guy. I feel like that guy's not going to make too much, but this sphere probably will do better with that. Oh, this is a sphere grid. Wow, I completely forgot about that. Yeah. And a lot of times too with things like this, I will set up my project files to be able to be run live. So I will just throw like keyboards in. I treat like my keyboard like a second MIDI,
Nice.
and I'll map. And again, this is this is all stuff I pulled from watching Papa Bear walk through his project file. And I was like, wait, that's a great way to do this. Just mapping your keyboard like a MIDI and then just like forcing yourself to memorize.
For sure.
Yeah, so I'll like start animating stuff and then go through and see what I can swap through.
And you use VJ, right?
I do. I have not been able to recently, just with some like weirdness going on with learning this new laptop, and just trying to get my little settings right. But yeah, I use VJ and I spout that into Resolume so I can use real-time content as well as like being able to layer loops videos that I have or loops that I made previously.
The new version of VJ actually allows you to use media. I just had Jack on, Anti-Alias. His episode will be out soon. So the new version of VJ is coming soon as well. So look out for that.
I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, it's very nice. Very impressive what he's done.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. So yeah, that's my basic, like, I'm setting up a project file and this is what we're doing type beat. And I don't know, usually we'll work on a patch for a day or two. And then we'll revisit it a few days later just with fresh eyes because I don't know if you can relate to this. I know some people do, where it's just like, if I look at it for too long, I hate it. So I need to be able to like come back to it and kind of expand.
I'm way much more of a narcissist than you. The more I look at it, the more I love it.
What do you mean?
No, I'm joking. No, I know that feeling. It's like it's more of like frustration of like my problem is I'm a tinkerer. So I'll look at something and I'll just start playing with it and then I'll just completely fuck it up and it will be ugly. So it's like I have the opposite problem of like I just look at something for too long and then I play with it for too much and then it just ruins it. Definitely getting a good night's sleep and kind of like stopping and coming back is really, really helpful. I really try to remind myself that.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, as much as I am like working with computers, they are also the bane of my existence. And I've never been angrier about things that I like more so than I am a computer and running into a problem with a computer. So I feel like I have to like remove myself from it so I don't get so angry at the fact that I'm like using my computer so I can like actually effectively like make
that makes
something.
Sense. You gotta be you gotta be best friends with your computer. I give all my computers names. I treat them like pets. Or sorry, you're not my pet. I'm sorry, you're my equal.
You are my equal. Yeah.
So what is your
computer's name? If you don't mind me asking,
I can tell you. My PC is Simango, and my laptop is Amanito.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I named this one. If you like look at like my settings, I think it's named the laptop. I forget. It was something like my partner came up with, and he was like, "Call it laptop." So this is laptop.
Crystal Beth and laptop.
That's my basic setup here.
Nice, dude. It's really cool.
Just for like, actually, I'll talk about this with like a finished like a project file I'm like working through because it'll make more sense. Cool. I'll save this guy and that.
Thank you for showing us your it's very daunting to start off from zero on an empty thing. So I appreciate you taking the challenge and kind of like jumping into the water. I'm not just being hyperbolic. That was really nice and pretty, and it's just nice to see how your brain works and kind of approaches things. I'm sure Tommy is going to be very happy to see that. So if not for anybody, for him.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I like to go into something with a blank slate and I just like see what sticks. And a lot of times I'll start off with something and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrifying. I need to walk away from it. And then I'll come back to it a few days later and I'm like, oh, cool. I don't hate this as much as I did. Like this project file I'm opening, the lovely nucleus goo that I called it, that's like been evolving. It's been evolving for the past like month. I like was working on it and got really, really frustrated one day because I was having that problem where I was like, I'm not achieving the depth that I want in this, that I feel like I can like really animate it to have it like be continuously like interesting over time.
Nice.
And I like rage quit and didn't come back to it for like 2 weeks and then opened it a few weeks ago and was like, wait, what? Why did I stop working on this? And I've just been like tinkering with it here and there. And I'm like super stoked with
Love it.
how it's coming out. So this is
Yeah, walk us through it,
It takes
from left to right if you want.
Yeah, it takes me a little while to get there, but this one I'm super stoked about. Again, everything is all Taurus. I started with a Taurus and just same thing, bent it, twisted it, and then combined it with a gyroid and a noise field in a round. And that always just looks like weird little, like it's these like weird little, I'm pointing at my screen and you can't even see, I'll use my mouse. These like weird little like splunky like arms. And for whatever reason, like I love that. So threw that into combined with another noise field and that hexagonal crochet pattern that I was like trying to play with in the last thing. And again, threw it in with a round because we love a round because it makes everything look all just like gooey and organic. Been on like a big organic kick lately. I feel like I've been straying away from like sharp lines. And then these guys are just, what did I do here? Actually, that's a good question. This is just playing around. I animated the thickness of this Taurus. It's just sitting on an LFO. And this bend I have on a keyboard, but I'll get to my like MIDI settings later. But yeah, again, another combine in with that noise field and that like that hexagonal crochet pattern that y'all see going on here. And then we have our, I guess what I was calling the nucleus when I was like thinking about naming this project. My sphere with a noise field again in a round here. I have it rotating. And then just playing around and seeing like what happens if I like reuse different operators here. So I was like, let me use another twist. Let me use another invert. We play around with this rotate 4D and just put the pivot on an LFO to give it a little bit more movement just to see what it's going to do. And then, oh wow, I gave these separate materials too. Yeah, so my noise fields, my gyroid down here are all on a separate material where I took a rim contribute, and that's this like the lava type, like all those oranges and yellows that you're seeing in there, and threw in color ramp field with it just to give it a little bit more like, I wanted to try to make this look like as, I guess, real as possible while still, I don't know, my brain was also like, let's make it metallic again. So did that with the specular. And kind of same thing over here for the nucleus part in the middle. Same thing, just did a rim contribute. And then a specular. And I think I have I have reflections turned on in here too. Yeah, I do. And then combined them again and just, that's kind of the skeleton of this. That's basically just threw a bunch of SDFs together as I always do. And yeah. And then post-processing, this guy's got a good bit of post-processing on it. I pulled the depth map trick here, which I love, which is making like all of these just look steamy and fiery and like we're like inside of whatever's creating this lava. And then this is a step count. This is, I think that's something I've learned from, again, forgive me, I cannot remember his first name. Perry VJ is his handle. The way his brain works blows my mind. And he had like one free project file on Patreon that I like lurked around and found that he had this really, really cool method for creating metallics that he used the step count for with this like really complex just like layering technique of just like different levels and adding in, I don't know, it was crazy. And I have pulled that step count from there and pushed it to see what I can do with it. Yeah, and I just took that step count, and the step count, I'm not entirely sure what it does. I think it's just showing you like where the rays are hitting your actual material. Yeah,
it is. This is another technique that Jack was showing actually that he does, kind of similar to taking the depth pass and using the depth pass as like creating like depth effect. You can do the same thing with the steps. So yeah, it's a pretty nice effect, I think.
Yeah, so definitely just tossed both of those in and threw in a level made it monochromatic just so it has a little bit more depth added on top of the depth map that I already have. And laid a bloom over it. I love the bloom top, truly. And I found that screen is a really good operation for overlaying depth for whatever reason. I don't necessarily know what screen does versus something like a multiply, or like multiply makes sense in my head, but I'm like, screen, I don't know what this does. And a bloom
Screen
top
is kind of like a multiply, actually. It's the same idea of the blacks. It's almost like a subtract, but it definitely is different. There's like there's the blending modes have like very small nuances between them all, and they're also like, I love TouchDesigner, but I'm going to say something very controversial. The blending modes in TouchDesigner are retarded. They don't they're not like any other blending modes of any other program. It's kind of actually, I should actually say the opposite. Blending modes in any other program are retarded, and the TouchDesigner's ones are really good. Because they use like
I have nothing to compare it to other than like Rezzle, but
or Photoshop.
Yeah.
But it's like because in TouchDesigner they're like much more like programmatic. It's like a subtract or an add or things like that is kind of like doing what it should be doing, whereas like in Photoshop or something, it's doing things differently.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that difference between them. I was like, I know some of these words from playing around with them, and I'm just going to play around with them and see which one looks best. And yeah, I found that when I do this step count thing, I like how screen looks, so I'll do that.
Nice.
Pulled another render select here where I just grabbed the normal map.
Nice.
And this is a base that I created just based off of Tommy Ekin, one of his tutorials, and I've just gone through and I think I just like switched out a top or two, or maybe added a top or two in, and just made it a base so I can pull it out and use it.
Nice.
And it just gets rid of some of the like noisy parts where your like SDF will break up on the edge because you like pushed it a little too far, or just get rid of some of the noisiness that you get from like lighting or colors or things like that, make things look like nice and smooth and not fuzzy and weird.
Yeah.
So I threw that base in, and then I'm sure there's like a string of anti-aliases here. Yep. But yeah, that's basically the good stuff there. The
Super
meat
nice.
of this that I love, that the reason I haven't posted this anywhere, I haven't like played this live or anything yet, just because I have been working on the audio reactivity of it. I'm like not crazy about how it looks right now, and you can just, honestly, if you like are listening to me talking and looking at the nucleus in the middle, you can like see it picking up the mids of just me talking and moving to that, which I think is
That's funny,
hilarious, right?
Hello?
Project file.
Hello? Is it picking me up as well?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Oh yeah, I see it now.
Not
I see
quite
it now.
as loud, but yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it like cracks me up when I open up a project and it's just like pulling my audio device and it like picks up my voice.
That's awesome. So fun.
But this like little, I called it Nabio reactivity. My partner's like performance name is Nob Ross, and we collab on stuff a lot, which I love that I get to like work with my partner and create with my partner. And he sat down and made this audio reactivity loop.
Bob, did you say like, Bob Ross?
Nob Ross. Pulled inspiration from Nob Ross, yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I think I've heard of him before. He's like semi-well known, no? Like I think I've heard of his play. He
just went on tour with Sasquatch.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That must have been fun.
And like I said, a lot of what I know about TouchDesigner, especially in terms of like learning the foundations of programming, we do a lot of whiteboard sessions now that I like need to know these things.
Nice.
He has helped me a ton with learning, and it's so fun that we get to collab together on stuff.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So we sat down and he made this, where this is this beat follower is like my favorite thing in the whole entire world.
Show me that. It looks really cool. He made that?
Yeah. I did not. This is an interface. Oof. I forget who made it. I think I got this. Electronaut was using this.
Okay,
and I was like, I love this interface. Because
it's
like,
super visual.
I like being able to see the waveform of everything, and then being able to like pick my lows, my mids, and my highs.
Yeah.
So I love the interface for this. So it's taking that interface, and here you can see just if you turn the viewer on, I mean, hide my parameters here because those are not helpful in this case. These are what my specs are for my mids, and I tweak them as I need to. Live, we're not going to see anything come up for the highs or the lows just because there's no break. Oh, it did. I think maybe it's not picking you up quite as much.
No, I don't think it's picking me up.
But yeah, you can see me talking. It's picking me up here. And you can drag this guy right in the middle around. So you can like make your envelope width smaller with larger to be able to like pick up what you need to pick up. Make sure you're not capping out in the top. So I love this interface. And we basically took it and he just made it even more dialed than it already is. So
nice.
Just selecting all of it, putting an envelope, all of it, and then pulling from the actual just like raw waveform here. I don't know what this math top. Oh, just averaging our audio input, making it mono, averaging those two channels.
Yeah.
Analyzing, throwing a little filter on top of it, and another just little post add here, and threw it in with another math and a speed chop, so we get some constant values, so we have that constant movement on stuff. And then I can pull out my other values if I want to pull them out, but that's the basic setup of this, and I love this. And like I said, he created a wonderful thing here that I use for like everything.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I just take that and I'll pull the values out and I'll assign them to things and tweak again as need be. So here, I've got it running into a noise field on my highs here, and then added a little bit more extra movement to it on one of my noise fields, the noise field that's on my gyroid, or that's combined with my gyroid here. Same thing here, but on that like texture pattern, the hexagonal pattern we got here, pulled my lows, added some more constant movement to it.
Nice.
Yeah, same thing, translating it with my mids, adding some more movement.
Really just refining it in a nice way.
Yeah, and I want to be able to make that just like a little bit more dialed, so I'm going to come back to this patch later. And then I've got a couple MIDI controls set up just for playing live, where this bend here, just take my keyboard in, logic switch here, run it through a trigger so I can control like my attack and my decay rates, and then keeping it between the values I need it to. So if I press 1, we get a little bit of movement here, just within the shape of the torus. And if I press it again, it'll go back to like, it's just default value. Let's see, yeah, and I've got a keyboard in here as well on this sphere in the middle that, actually I love this. So if I keep pressing the 4 key, my sphere gets closer. And I'll use that on like a build-up or something. And then it gets real small again. And then I always map a reset to it too, just in case I like want to case. Yeah, I like to give myself like more options for movement rather than like it's just moving towards me. I can make it go forward and backwards too in that sense. Yeah. What's happening here? Oh, this is one I'm not crazy about, but this is just the twist. Oops, it hates, and I pushed the wrong button. There we go. Yep, we just have the twist happening here on basically everything that's combined but the sphere. And again, like I said, I'm not crazy about that. This is just a work in progress. But again, so I'm really excited about this patch. So, and it's got everything that I normally like would want in a setup in terms of like my audio reactivity on my keyboard midis. I'm really, really happy with how the material turned out on this one. So yeah, that's basically that. And hit the reset and spins all the way back. But yeah, that's the overview of like what either like a working file or like a close to completed file looks like for me. I
love it.
Lean really heavily on audio reactivity, especially in a live setting. Because I think what makes a visual really, really encapsulating is like all those little sounds you hear, you can see the movement for. Or like, I don't know, if there's like the big like blobby movement in this is all mapped to my lows, because I feel like your lows are just like, it's creeping, it's big movement, it feels like it's coming towards you. So I like to map my lows to a movement like that.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that's something when I'm looking at a visual, I'm like, oh, every single little sound I'm hearing is coming through this and just showing me how textured what I'm listening to is in a visual way. And then giving myself the keyboard MIDI controls to be able to like create a moment a little bit more.
Yeah.
But like I said, my audio reactivity and my keys or my MIDI mappings on this are definitely the work in progress here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what a working file looks like for me, and I'll throw this into AAVJ and run this live. And I love being able, I love generative art for that reason too, because it like gives me a little bit of a brain break when I need one, because it's so interesting on its own that I feel like I don't have to be like aggressively constantly like throwing up a slider or like pushing a button. It gives me room to breathe. I think it creates really interesting moments in a song where there is rooms to breathe within a song, where it's just like, oh, this is moving exactly with how the song is moving too. So love generative art for that purpose. Like, it's so cool how it just like, it's like a living thing on its own. It just like,
it's
doing its thing.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anything else you wanted to show us, or should we move to the second portion?
No, I think that's it for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that was really, like I said, it's really nice to see it's always nice to see different people's approaches and kind of like the way that they attack or like, look at things, and kind of approach things. It's very, very fun and interesting to see that.
I love getting to see how people work, for sure. It's one of my favorite things.
That was really awesome to see that and to see how your process works and, how your brain works. I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for sharing. And I'd love to move to our second portion and kind of get a little bit, more into some interesting kind of conversations. Just to start it off, you being a beginner VJ and kind of like, new to this kind of field, what do you think makes a good VJ? Like, what strikes you as something that makes somebody a good VJ?
I think a lot of that definitely depends on the style of music that you're listening to. For me, it's being able to make those visuals match what you're hearing. So if something is like really bassy and has a lot of like weird movement and like really organic sounds, I think having something that has those organic lines and just something less, I guess, geometric, and just having things like be able to match up with what you're hearing, whether that be colors that match the emotion that the song is portraying. And like I said, being able to like flow between song transitions, just moving and storytelling as the set that you're listening to is. It's very clear when a VJ and a DJ are like kind of on the same wavelength of flow. You can definitely tell when that's happening. I think Tenorless is like a great example of that. I feel like he's knows the music and is so locked in, and vice versa with whether it be like Tipper, Cicada, whoever he's playing with. Like, I feel like there's such a cool, like, we're on the same wavelength and performing as such. So it's cool to be able to see the connectedness and just the expression of emotion match up between both performers. I think that's really cool, being able to take cues from one another.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's a really good good point. I think that besides for the aesthetic, there's a really big part of being a VJ of having to just go with the punches and go with the flow, whether it's you get there and in America it's less projectors, more LEDs, but you get there and the projector's all fucked up, or the LEDs don't work, or the time slots change. You have to kind of like always be on your feet, being able to, answer and solve problems. So it's really, really important as a VJ, and kind of, you kind of mentioned it before of like going with the flow and being able to match what you're being given, right? Like, and especially I think that you're getting a really good introduction to what it means to be a good VJ, because you do these long 4-hour sets at Night Therapy, where you get to kind of play long sets, and that really gets you into the flow. It makes you have to like really think on your toes and kind of get like deeper and deeper into what you're doing. I think that unfortunately in the States, not unfortunately, but whatever, in the States, I'm trying to be positive. In the States, the VJ sets are usually like a 1 hour set. And, there's a lot of benefits to that because you get to like really like throw everything in it all at once and you kind of get to make a show, but you don't really practice what it means to curate visuals for music. You don't really get to practice what it means to like get into like a really deep flow. Tass like hates doing one sets. He's like, whenever we make the lineup for Modem, he like really likes to have like a big block, like a 4 hour minimum block. And I totally get it, because like the 2 hour blocks, you by the time you're locked in and you're like in it, it's done. And it's like, it's a bummer. And like you could definitely like just start off with your best stuff and like get like fast into the flow. But it's like, it really takes time to build something up, like
it does.
Even if your visuals are cool at the beginning, you're not locked in yet. You need to take time to lock in. So I think that it's really, any aspiring or up and coming VJ, it's really important to try and find gigs or venues that you can play for a long period of time. Even if you don't have enough content, just kind of get into the habit of playing longer sets. So you kind of engross, experiment more, try different things out, and you can kind of, really grow from that.
Yeah, I think same can be said for being locked into with like making sure you're locked in with the rest of your front of house too. Where like
totally
the shows I'm playing don't have a cue front of house, but like your lighting guys, like making sure you guys are on the same wavelength and taking cues from one another. And I'm sure same goes for people that are running lasers and things like that.
100%.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. Being communicative, collaborative. It's not your show; it's our show. Is extremely important. I think that any VJ that doesn't appreciate lights or lasers is a fucking idiot. But no, sorry, we're being positive.
I mean, you have to be so aware of all the moving parts that are happening because again, like. If you don't appreciate what your lighting guy's doing, like that can also kill your atmosphere. Like lighting is so important.
Lighting is the most important, like it creates mood, it creates emotion. So it's like, if you're not attuned to that, if you're not like in key with that, then you're not going to, I take it back. You're not a fucking idiot, but you're not benefiting from the full scope of tools that are available for you.
Yeah, definitely.
So while we're kind of on the topic of VJing and before we kind of get into a little bit more, esoteric, I keep on using that word, but esoteric things, we spoke about RayTK and how great it is, how much of a nice tool it is for you to use it. I think we spoke about it a nice amount. If there's anything else you want to talk about it, then please. And we kind of mentioned AAVJ very quickly. I'd like to like just kind of hinder on those 2 points a little bit more. And maybe any other TouchDesigner tools that you want to shout out. I'll just give my 2 cents. RayTK is amazing. It kind of allows you to do things that you would never be able to do unless you knew how to do shaders and write code. It's extremely procedural, very performative, cheap costing in some aspects, sometimes not. But and the development of it is rampant. Tommy spends a lot of time developing it. He's always adding new features. Really, really awesome tool. And AAVJ is a tool by Anti-Alias, which is a kind of almost like a media server akin to Resolume inside of TouchDesigner that allows you to perform and play in an optimized, clean environment. And very highly recommended. It's in beta. You can join the Discord. I would not, I can't recommend it more. What is your experience with these tools, and kind of please tell me.
Yeah, me being like a control freak about everything that I'm dealing with, I love AAVJ for the fact that like not only am I blending real-time scenes over each other and just having the benefit of having everything dialed into your audio reactivity if that's how you want to have things set up, or your MIDI keys, you can straight up access your network. And I love that because you can create like transitions between things with just your network where like, I don't know, cheap, easy way that I like to do every now and again is I'll throw like a limit top over my post-processing of something and set the quantize to round and play with those values to give just like a pixelated glitchy effect to match up what I need to match up, or like that buys me time within a transition to change colors, perspectives, something within that same scene and use it so we still have some, you know, familiarity from the last song coming into the new song, but still being able to use the same scene and seeing that evolve over time. I think it creates like a really cohesive effect and just kind of dual purpose. You're able to create your own transitions within your network just based off of like one singular operator or even just like a quick like feedback network or something like that. So I love the flexibility of being able to play within my network. And like, even when if you are playing a 4-hour set, like, there are times where you feel like you might run out of content, and like being able to reuse stuff in a creative way, in a way that like people can't tell that you're repeating something, or like it keeps things new and interesting while still moving along the storyline and kind of forcing you to work with what you got on the fly. I think that's like a really, really important skill. It's something I value being able to do, is just being able to work well on the fly. And I think being able to work within your network gives you a lot of like ways to do that. So love that of AAVJ. That's like one of my favorite things, being able to like get into my own network. And and to the ode of Tawiakin of creating RayTK, which is such a powerful toolkit. And again, has created this thing that like I would have never in a million years been able to do in terms of writing code for something like that, but has sparked my interest in learning now GLSL to be able to do more with that toolkit, and expand on what I already have to be able to create things that are like even crazier. So love that. So that's, I don't know. It's just, everything is constantly AAVJ, TouchDesigner as a whole, RayTK, everything is so constantly evolving. And I think all of those developers do such a good job of listening to the community and the community needs, that like, it's always new, it's always better, it's always something interesting when a new version comes out of something, or like a bug needs to be fixed or something like that. So
Totally. Yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice to see how things are developing so fast and rampantly, and you know, it just makes a very makes exciting. You know, it's exciting to see what's going to happen in the future and where we're going with this. Craziness of real-time generative graphics.
Yeah, and just some other stuff too that I've played around with.
Yeah, please.
Playtronicas are crazy. I don't know if you've ever played around with one of those. It's basically just like a MIDI like circuit board. Let me see. I think I have it here. I used this for To the Moon. My partner and I did an interactive piece where we had 5 screens mounted in like a crescent moon shape, and one person went up and had to touch the end of a copper pipe. Another person touched another copper pipe on the other side of the setup, and then touch each other. It completed the circuit and was a whole interaction on the screen where it went from this like bright pixelated metal to like this warm lava with like,
so cool.
Yeah, so that was like a whole thing. And this, wow, it's actually covered in e-tape from To the Moon still, but yeah, it's like this little circuit board thing, and these are metallic here. It's actually just like, it's just taped over with e-tape right now, and we hooked these alligator clips up and ended up hooking them up to those copper pipes. And this thing is crazy. I think the Interactive and Immersive HQ does like a little overview of it, but I think I've only seen, other than their video, people doing things using this as like a MIDI for music and hooking it up to like bowls of water and touching them like that. And
like creating a circuit. Yeah, like with plants and things like that.
I think there's so much crazy stuff you could do with this in visual world that
What's
I'm
it called?
like, Playtronica.
Playtronica. Very
I'm
nice.
stoked on this thing. Like,
looks super cool.
Yeah, so I don't know, cool thing that I've been telling everybody about lately.
Thank you for that.
I played around with like the Z camera lately too.
Z is sick. The Z camera is great. Highly recommended.
Yeah,
a little bit expensive, but really, really powerful. Yeah. Have you tried the Oak D at all?
I haven't. A big thing when I was looking into cameras this was for my grant for To the Moon. at the time I didn't know if I was going to have a new laptop, and I wasn't sure what worked on the Mac operating system, because like I know the Kinect cameras don't. And I was just like looking for something that, like, if I didn't have this Windows laptop that I have now, if I was going to be able to run something on my Mac if I had to. And I actually ended up running that whole project on my Mac. So having the Zed be able to work with my operating system was...
Which one did you have? The Z2i or just the Z2?
2i.
2i, nice. Yeah, it's good. It's very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see what else it does, because I think I had such a tight like turnaround time on that project that I didn't get to like dive in as much as I wanted to with it. But yeah, that thing is crazy too. I'm excited to do more with that.
Yeah, we bought a bunch years ago actually in a studio that I was working at to try and do like a real-time occlusion for virtual production.
Ooh, very cool.
It didn't work, but you know, it was still fun to play with.
Yeah, it's a cool camera, especially in terms of like being able to just like rebuild environments in 3D space. I think that's like a really crazy feature of it that I want to do more with.
And the TouchDesigner chops are really good. You know, it's like the Kinect is just not, it's no more, you know, and like they have like kind of hacked versions of the Kinect. I forgot the company that took the reins for it, but you know, the Kinect Azure doesn't exist. So it's like, what is the next supported high quality hardware is the Zed, really. You know, the OAK-D is amazing.
Is so good.
Yeah, you know, it's super great. The OAK-D is really good, but it's you know, it's cheap and it's you have to kind of do it yourself. Whereas the Zed just kind of has everything built in for you. Yeah, very, very highly recommended. So shifting gears from visuals and art, I want to kind of talk a little bit about, well, I guess it's kind of the same, akin to the same thing, but you know, kind of like what it's been like for you, kind of breaking into the visuals industry, what it's been like for you in terms of like gatekeeping. You know, obviously you're a lady, beautiful lady, and you know, what is it, you know, I'm not a lady, I'm not a beautiful lady. So I don't have that experience of what that's like. I also am from a completely different region of the world, and you know, not like a crazy different generation, but a different generation nonetheless. You know, I say retard without thinking about it twice, because that's kind of like in my lexicon of words from the 90s.
Right.
So, you know, and I do try to be careful with that, but, and it's, you know, I love everybody. It's nothing to do with that, but, I digress. You know, what has kind of like been your experience as a newcomer, as somebody who's kind of like joining it in this generation, in this year, in this time? You know, what has been your experience with, you know, being a woman in the industry, kind of, you know, breaking into the industry, and maybe, you know, some anecdotes, or, you know, maybe you have some questions for me, but whatever you want to kind of take the conversation, I'm happy to go with it with you.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, everybody in the visual world thus far has been absolutely wonderful. And I haven't run into too many instances of gatekeeping like we were talking about earlier. Everybody I've met has been very open and willing to chat about anything and everything, whether it be visuals, whether it be business, whether it be life. Like, and I love that. I feel like I'm very, very open as a person in terms of everything I do. So I love that.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was like, wait.
Wrong button.
I love that seems to be like a value that's also held by the community. And I think we are all very lucky to experience that, because I know in spaces where maybe it is a little more saturated, like in music world, DJs producing things like that, it's a little more competitive. I think there's a lot more gatekeeping that happens there. I know my partner always has said to me, like, that's so cool that you have the community that you do with the folks that you're constantly collaborating with and chatting with about things, because as much as like we do find it in music world, but we don't find it as much. So it's awesome that it is just so readily available, and people want to see people succeed and they want to support each other. And I think part of that does speak to how niche our craft is and how technical it is, because I think it takes a very, I guess, just like determined and patient mindset to dive into something like doing visuals with all of the different ins and outs of like, you have to know your tech, you have to know your program, you have to know your craft in and out to be able to, I guess, perform on the fly like that, because you're dealing with things like maybe your LED wall isn't working, maybe your projector isn't working, you have to work alongside your lighting guys. Like there's so many different moving parts that I think everybody really has an understanding of how important community is. And I love that. And I guess just in terms of like being a lady, I guess a little less so in, I haven't run into it so much as like my role as a VJ, but more so like in my role, it's like doing like straight up production work. Cause like, I mean, to be fair, like I'm 5'3", I'm small, but like, being an athlete and just kind of like my inner Chad who's like in the gym and like lifting, and I'm like, I can do all of the same things. And I think you have to fight for space a little bit more, where folks are quicker to overlook you, or straight up, like I've had people like, if I'm doing something with power tools, like take them out of my hand. If I'm like asking them about something and I'm like, hold on, I got it. Like, yeah. It's just like little subtle things like that. And I think sometimes when it happens, people don't think about it. And then you kind of have to like I said, create space for yourself and kind of be like, hey, I'm here. I can do this just as well as anybody else. And I don't know, it's tough, but it also, I think, has taught me how to hold my own, and even more so like fake it till I make it when I have to be able to hold my own in a space where maybe I'm not at the level that somebody else is in terms of like knowledge, but physically I can, you know what I mean? So it's definitely taught me how to hold space and not like sink into myself, because I do deserve to be somewhere. I do deserve to take up the same space. I do deserve to learn and do at the same rate as a man, I guess. So,
without a doubt.
But yeah, I mean, my community I have around here has been great. So not too many times have I run into it, but there's definitely times where I can tell like people don't realize I'm part of the production. They think I'm just somebody who's there. And I'm like, no, it's me. I'm here. I'm doing the roles. Like, so yeah, it's funny to be aware of like your perception of other people in that sense. But I think, again, being so new to it, but just in general, I think I've been really lucky to not have encountered quite as many like
shitty people
spaces where, shitty people where like I'm not valued. Like I've definitely had times where I've had to like prove, I think, a little more than others and like hold my own a little bit more. But like, I guess for me, the only way I can look at that is like, it's going to make me more capable at the end of the day. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way of looking at things is like through that eyes, you know, through the eyes of, like you said, like being able to not view yourself as less than because somebody said that you're less than, or, you know, even less specific, like just because you're of a certain sex and just because you're of a certain, you know, creed or whatever, that doesn't mean anything really. And you know, it's like the kind of thing with intention and, you know, not manifestation per se, but like perception. Like if you perceive yourself as that, then that's how people that are good are going to perceive you as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important. And, you know, again, like I'm coming at it from white Jewish guy. Like I have a very, very specific, you know, experience in life. But I'm also like sensitive and have friends of different races and sexes that I can relate and understand their situation. And, you know, I think that it always comes down to the perception of yourself. Same for me as a white guy. Like, you know, I can go to some places and being a white guy is not so great. Like I've been in Mexico and driving and I get stopped everywhere I go because I, you know, and I have dreadlocks too. So I do get stopped sometimes. I do get profiled, but, you know, it's all the way you kind of perceive yourself and the way that you express yourself out to the world is how the world is going to perceive and accept to you. And I'm really happy that you haven't had any bad experiences. I pray that will continue for you in your career, and you know that
Fingers
won't.
Crossed.
Yeah, you know, I think that if anybody can not have a bad experience, somebody like you who's very positive and excited and You're very smart and kind of like, you know, you have a very high self-worth. So I think that if you, you know, stay in the right places and kind of like, you know, pursue the things that are good for you and make you feel good, and not pursue things that make you, I don't know, like, I'm not trying to put you in a box, but like pursue things that are going to make you wealthy, or pursue things that are going to make you successful, like famous or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But like, I think that, but those things are attainable if you just pursue the things that make you feel good. That makes sense?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
You know, like, and it's a double-sided thing, because you feel good about it, and then like your life is good. And like being famous and rich is not going to make your life good necessarily. Can, but it's very unlikely that if that's your goal, that your life's going to be good. If your goal is to do things that you love to do and feel good, and you make money and be successful out of it, you won. You know, so
definitely, I agree.
So yeah, I mean, I'm happy that that's kind of been your experience. You know, I feel like it's not everybody's experience. I feel like some people do have a tough time, you know, and feel looked down upon, or, you know, feel, you know, marginalized, or feel that people are sexist towards them. So, you know, I don't want them to feel less than, or feel like there's something's wrong with them. You know, like, I think the most important thing is to express, communicate, speak, talk. If you see something, say something, you know, and I don't mean that like in a call the police, or, you know, post on Facebook. Like, if somebody's being sexist, talk to them in private, go to them and be like, hey, why are you doing this? You know, and if they don't have the wherewithal to, like, you know, acknowledge what they're doing, then make it public, you know, but most likely 9 times out of 10, people don't even know what they're doing. You know what I mean? People just are been programmed, propagandized, indoctrinated. It's not their fault. They just are who they are because of society. And if you mention it to them, you can actually save their life. You can make their life better. And if you went public and make them feel bad, then now they're on the defensive and they're not going to learn. They're not going to grow. But if you, and I don't mean you, like you, it could be your partner, it could be your friend. But if somebody goes to talk to them and expresses to them, hey, you're acting wrong, you're doing something bad, like, that gives them an opportunity to grow, instead of putting them down and making them, you know, feel shitty. And obviously there's a thin line. Like, if somebody's you know, essaying somebody or R-ing somebody, don't like wait and talk to them. Go to the police, of course. But like, you know, I mean, like, if somebody's being misogynistic or sexist or racist or whatever in a public environment, and even in a private environment, then I think that it's important to, you know, to approach them and express that to them and say, hey, like, reflect to them, hey, you were doing that. Did you notice that? Do you realize that you're doing that? And if they say, yeah, fuck you, then, you know, fuck them. But if they say, no, I didn't realize it, then that's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah, as long as it's like the situation is safe to be able to say something to somebody like that. Because I know, like, definitely, especially in this industry and getting gigs, like, power dynamics can so much so be at play. And I think most women, I don't want to speak for most women, but I know myself and experiences of others who I've spoken to, like, we have to go into things with a mentality that's just baked into us of, like, this thing might happen. Right. I might be viewed differently.
Yep.
Like, it's just like almost having to have like a little bit of like, just like constantly like being a little, maybe not a little, but like I'm hypervigilant when I go into a space like that, where I know like misogyny tends to be something that runs rampant.
I think unfortunately it's like that everywhere, right? It's not only in the visual industry. It's kind of like the society that we live in is a very, you know, whatever, patriarchal, for lack of better term, society. You know, unfortunately, like, that's something that kind of, I think, is almost like that you kind of built in, right? Like almost like a default, you know, which is a shame. I think that's a shame. I think that I wish that wasn't like that, you know, because I think that, again, that kind of messes up with the self-worth and the self-appreciation when you have to go into a situation defensive, when you have to go into a situation of like, oh, I'm going to have misogyny towards me. Then it's like, first of all, if misogyny is not towards you, then that energy is already expressed, right? You've already kind of like, it's already happened to you, even if it hasn't, because you're kind of like already in that space. And I'm not saying it's something bad, like you have to, because like of the world that we live in, and like you said, like the real life situations that can happen. But it's just like sucks that that's the situation, you know, like, yeah, I hate that. Like, I wish that wasn't so. And, you know, I want to lead by example of like that not being the situation, you know, and like any opportunity that I can have to empower or platform or, prove to somebody of a marginalized community that not everybody is like that, and that they don't have to come to me with the idea that, oh, maybe he's going to be misogynist because he's a guy, or maybe he's going to be racist because he's a white guy, or, you know, maybe he's going to try and steal my money because he's Jewish or whatever. You know, like if that can be proven or shown to people, then, you know, then maybe the next time they have an interaction, it's different, you know, and I don't know, there's like, I don't know what the real answer is here, because maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe you are right in your intuition to like come to most situations with like your borders up so that somebody doesn't take advantage of you or objectifies you. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's a tough thing, you know, like.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not necessarily like I'm coming into something with like defenses are up. It's just like being aware of the possibility that this might happen and knowing how to handle myself within that, because like maybe I'm not in a place where I feel like I'm safe to confront this person about it. And I think as like across the board, the best thing that people can do is be aware that this could potentially happen to somebody who's femme presenting, or even, I mean, it could happen to, like I said, anybody, but again, speaking from like a femme perspective, that having people around me that are aware of those stereotypes that do exist for women in the industry and femme presenting people in the industry, presenting and identifying where it could happen, having people around that are aware of that, and realizing that, like, for say, if I was in a situation where there was power dynamic at play, I feel like I would get kicked off this job if I said something to whoever said it to me. Like, being able to be a support system for that person and speaking up for them if you have, because like clearly if you are somebody who witnesses that and it's clear that there's a power dynamic at play, you might be able to do something that could benefit something that's happening to somebody rather than them actually confronting that situation head on. So just being aware and being a support system and not allowing like shitty behavior to perpetuate, I think is like the best thing that you can do. And something that I try to do too when I'm in a situation where like somebody's being treated shittily and like, because that's ew, gross. A, don't do that. B, like there's so many variables that go into a situation that I think just having a community around it and being able to check up on your people is like the most important part of that, for sure.
It's also, you know, and this is like more of like a, you know, like a abstract idea, but it's also in, what's the word? Not inconclusive, but it's, it doesn't help your industry. It doesn't help your community. It doesn't help your industry. It doesn't help your art. It doesn't help your creativity to not have vastly different people orienting people, different sex people, you know, in that industry. Like it's the same thing with like an echo chamber of like politics. Like if you sit all day on your Instagram or Facebook and all you see is the same political views, you're never ever going to grow. You're just going to be stuck in one thing. So the same thing goes for a creative industry. If like the creative industry is predominantly one sex or one orientation, then you're going to be missing out on like a whole other side of something. You know what I mean? I don't know what that is. You know, I can be a feminine person. Like my feminine energy can come out in my art, but like it's totally different if like somebody who's actually a female or identifies as a female, whatever you want to call it, whatever, expresses themselves in like a fashion, and like, you know, what colors are they going to bring, what motion are they going to bring, what aesthetic, what ideas, and like because our industry is so into sharing and open and like collaborating, then it's not conducive is the word I was looking for. It's not conducive to that kind of environment, because you want to have people of different creeds, of different cultures, of different orientations to kind of express themselves so that you can become better at expressing yourself. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's why I feel like it's important to like tell people instead of shaming them, because most people, I like to believe that most people are good, you know, and you know, in today's world, in today's world, I'm proven wrong all the time about that. But, you know, like I still want to believe it. So like when you can express to somebody, hey, you being misogynistic, even without thinking about it, is going to be worse for your industry. That's like a really good argument to get somebody to be like on board with not being that way. You know what I mean? In a very abstract way, I know. And I you know, it's a sensitive topic. I really appreciate you kind of like engaging in it, you know.
Absolutely. I think it's something that's really important to talk about, and something that's really important to me, especially being in like male dominated spaces, like outside of this world too. I think it's something that needs to be talked about, just because, I don't know, I think it's important to view people as people, and everybody's lived experiences and like thought processes are all so interesting and so helpful to whatever you're doing. And even just to like you as a person, like, I don't know, I think it's important to surround yourself with good people and just be aware of like the shitty things that can happen and advocate for it when it does happen, and be able to promote the most amount of different ideas and perspectives as much as you can. Like, and having, I think what you said of having good support system is super important as well. Absolutely.
You know, in general, just having people that love you around you is good, but especially when you're, you know, like you said, like you don't want to lose your job because somebody's being misogynistic. Like that's kind of like dumb, right? Like, but you want to be able to like express it and like, you know, cry or express yourself to somebody who's important to you, so that you can not bear a burden on you. You know what I mean?
And just be like, feel safe and like you're valued, and be able to like succeed in the environment that you're working in is so important to be able to do that.
So important. Yeah, I agree. Well, speaking about, you know, messed up situations and topics, bad
vibes only.
Bad vibes only. Bad trip. He revealed to me when we were talking before that you have a battle with ADHD, and kind of almost like where your name comes from, Crystal Beth. You know, because obviously all the if somebody doesn't know this, then good morning. All the ADHD medication is methamphetamines. So you know, which is crystal meth, which is all the same thing. So please, like, you know, tell me, what has that been like as a creative? You know, what is your regimen, and kind of like you know, just express to me, like, kind of, or us, to whatever you want in this topic, and you know, anybody else out there battling with it, you know, can benefit from that.
I definitely think I've run into lots of people that have had very similar experiences with me, or as me with this, where I was, I guess, quote unquote, undiagnosed until I went to college. It was very clear. Everybody knew. Like, I couldn't sit still. You know, I think a lot of the reason why I was in so many sports was like basically just for my parents to like run me around to get me tired. And it was one of those things where I didn't do poorly in school at the time. I wasn't like aggressively disruptive. I was like definitely disruptive, but not to the point where like it was such a behavioral problem for me personally, where my parents felt like I didn't need to be medicated, and just weren't big into the idea of like medicating for something like that. And so when I was about to go to college, I think it was probably my senior year of high school, like the last part of it, I finally got like formally diagnosed and got my ADHD medication. And I told my doctor at the time, I was like, hey, I tend to buy Adderall from people so I can sit down and take tests. Because especially like my junior and senior year of high school, I was really bad about like actually going to class during the day unless I had to be there for like a sports game. Because I literally could not make myself sit there. I was like, I am taking full pages of notes, remembering nothing, but I can remember who walked by in the hallway. And like, it was like so frustrating for me because I was like, I am trying to be present and I can't. So I would like, there were like weeks where I would go to class like once a week and I would get all my work and I would show back up the next week with all my work. And like, I had a teacher say to me at one point, he was like, you do good work, but I can tell you wrote this at like 3:00 in the morning, like before it was due. And I was like, oh, crazy. I did. And so I finally formally got diagnosed and went to college. And like going into college, I got recruited to play beach volleyball relatively early. I was like going through the recruiting process like my sophomore and junior year of high school. And finally had verbally committed to a school. I believe it was like the end of my junior year. So I like already knew where I was going and everything and had a very different like college application process than a lot of other people. But hadn't really like found anything that like, I guess sparked with me. Like I didn't have any idea of what I wanted to do. I knew I hated the idea of going into business. I like was like, I'm not great at math. I don't really want to go into like engineering or something like that, even though there's like lots of parts that interest me. So I ended up like, ooh, I really liked psychology when I took AP Psych in high school, went into college and straight up just went into that and was like, oh, cool. And like having medication, I was like, wait, this is crazy. I can sit down and remember and like, I'm not dumb. Like I had this whole realization of like, because like when I was in high school, I was like, I think I'm just clever. Like, I think I'm good at bullshit. Like, I think like that's probably it. And that's what has me like keeping up. But then I went to college and I was like, oh no, maybe I was actually aware the whole time. But now I actually can just like focus and do the things that I need to do to succeed and actually like find some sort of joy in what I'm learning because I'm able to, again, focus on it and then find actual coping mechanisms and different like learning strategies for learning the things that weren't quite clicking with me right away, like math and things like that. And I think a lot of that struggle of just being like, I don't like school. I don't really know what I want to do. I like can keep up, but like, I don't consider myself super academic. I think like played a lot into like why I was so drawn to going into psychology. Cause I was like, why is my brain like this? Somebody tell me. And my freshman year, so I was down at a really small, like liberal arts school in Florida. And I took a stress, pain, and happiness class that was like very biopsych and neurology centered. And I was like,
called? Sorry, say it again. Oh, what?
Stress, pain, and happiness.
Stress, pain, and happiness.
Yeah, and it just was a psych class that like looked through like the biomechanics and the biopsych and neurology behind all of those processes. And I was like fascinated with how that plays in with the brain and the body. And it was like, cause another gripe I had with psych was like, I don't want to work within the healthcare system. I don't really want to listen to people talk about their feelings all day. Like, and then that was the hard science that like drew me in where I was like, this is wild. And on top of that too, like I decided that being a college athlete was like not for me. I did not do well with imposed structure. I think again, speaking of my ADHD, I'm like, please don't ever tell me what to do. I will figure it out and I will get it to you by the deadline. Like, and I think I really struggled with that in terms of college volleyball, among lots of other factors of just the coaching staff and whatnot at the time. And I think just from playing volleyball at such a high level through middle school and high school, I think I was very burned out by the time I got there. And decided that like this small liberal arts school, like I wanted to do research and I needed to get out. So I transferred to Ohio State and thought I wanted to do neurology. Thought about walking onto the indoor volleyball team. And then I was like, wait, I don't want to go to school in Ohio after being in Florida and growing up in the South. I don't do well with the cold. I don't really want to play indoor volleyball. I just was like, I had lots of like doubt in going into that. So I actually ended up taking time off of school, came back home, moved in with some like random people that I like adjacently knew and did some part-time classes at NC State and fell in love with biopsych and applied cognitive psych. This is actually funny because I feel like this also kind of ties into festival world. I walked in the first day of my biopsych class and the person who was teaching it was like playing the Grateful Dead and had like a pashmina on his head, like when I walked in the class. I was like, okay.
That's great.
And
That's
then
great.
like got into the first day of class and he started talking about who he was a little bit. And I was like, this is somebody I would be friends with. A, B, I'm fascinated by the things I'm learning. So I'm going to go see how I do more of this after class. And he was a grad student at the time and ended up taking me as a research assistant in
Nice.
the lab that he worked in, where I got into doing human factors and doing a lot of research on applied cognitive psychology and ergonomics, human factors, things like that, in the setting of applied to like automated driving, attention and driving, things like that. So I was doing a lot of research on driving. And I was like fascinated by like the theoretical side of it, with like how we perceive time and events and things like that. Some of the VR stuff that other people in the lab were doing, I thought was like fascinating. And yeah, I was like, wait, wow, maybe I am smart. And all of these things about the brain are fascinating to me. And I think all of that really ties into like me all of a sudden having this like basically like personal renaissance of like, I love learning. I at the time was like, I'm going to go get a PhD. Yes, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. And then COVID hit. I had the last like, what was it, like a year and a half, 2 years I was in college was COVID, which was real weird. And for some reason, like that made everybody like double down on research. So I ended up like applying for grad school, didn't get into like any of the PhD programs I applied to, but I did get into a master's program, a doctor's master's program, and it was at UCLA, or not UCLA, excuse me, UC Long Beach. And I decided to not go. Because I was like, maybe this isn't what I want to do. Got a job in industry with it. And I was like, yeah, I hate this. Full stop. What do I do? Yeah. And was just like, looking back at it, was all of that whole path was like basically the fact that I got prescribed Adderall and my brain worked normally and I needed to know why.
Right.
So, and I think also too, it speaks to like, I love community, but yeah, the ADHD stuff has been wild because even like having quote unquote like normal 9-to-5 jobs, like I really struggled with the structure of that, having like, especially the last like formal 9-to-5 job that I actually ended up quitting to pursue like freelancing. I was like, what do you mean I have to be here between the hours of 9 and 5? Like, what if I need to walk away and not do it right now? Because I'm not going to do it well right now. Like, and I just like, I really struggle with imposed structure. I structure really well for myself. The neurodiverged, I do not like being told to do things at a certain time.
Right.
And yeah, and like I said, I think a lot of that, like my career path, of getting so into the brain and how the brain works with the body, and individual differences in the brain, especially with folks with ADHD and how that can, individual difference of those things. I think all of that tied into like, wow, my brain's working. This is crazy. So
Interesting.
And I think gig life, like this, where I'm freelancing and I'm picking up my clients and I'm given these deadlines that people need deliverables by, and I get to do it as I need to, and I get to structure my days as I need to, and I pick up my gigs and I get to work at obscure hours, which is fun because it keeps me on my toes always.
Right.
And it's different every time. It's always something different. Like the monotony, you know, we run out of dopamine in our brains at some point when.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's always interesting. I'm always learning. And, I think full-time diving into freelancing in terms of graphic design and now moving more towards, straight up visual arts, creating visuals for people, like playing gigs and VJing, has been really, really conducive to how my brain just functions. And it's nice to be, and I feel like a lot of us are neurodivergent too in this world. So it's nice to be like seen and like be able to like talk to people in the most neurodivergent of ways. So yeah. So Crystal Beth, you know, is kind of an ode to lovingly my Adderall. And also you can see I have my little crystal tower in the back here. I love rocks, but it's also like a silver
coming out of your head. Like
I do?
like the light. I love it. It's been like
Oh,
a
yeah,
halo
a
around
little
you. I
spin.
love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. It's been great.
Yeah. So Crystal Beth is kind of an ode to both of those things. And it's cool. Like, it's very empowering feeling like I have found a space where my brain works.
True.
Because like
it's
every
like
time I was in like a 9-to-5 setting, I was like, I'm dying. This is not fun. Like, are other people okay? Because I'm not.
Do you
so-
still take like Adderall and things like that today? Like Ritalin,
I do.
Adderall?
I do. Yeah, I do. I take Adderall. Yeah, and honestly, it gives me like a normal circadian rhythm. Without
Sure.
it, I like my
Wow.
brain does not know when to go to sleep. My
So
like
interesting.
circadian rhythm is just like goodbye, never sleep again. Sleep at noon, like sleep at noon until 6 p.m. Like it does things that doesn't make sense, and it like looks for dopamine in places like food or like certain I don't know like for me it was working out a lot like where like it's as a kid I was in sports a lot and I was like cool that my brain likes that so just looking for things elsewhere rather than like properly uptaking dopamine like it's supposed to. Adderall helps me do that and I'm able to I guess function in normal structure if I have to, like if I have to function within like I guess normal
9 to
people
5.
world I can but it's crazy to like have brain function like I guess a normal person.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's normal? You know, what's normal? I don't
Yeah,
think that
truly, what's normal?
There's no such answer. But
What's
it's
normal is
interesting.
easy for society and capitalism. That's a whole other thing. But
That's all. We don't have time for that conversation. Don't get me started. Don't get me started, Beth. On the next time we have you on, we'll get into capitalism. But just to kind of like end on a anecdote or a note, I'm feverishly anti or against or don't like medications or the medical industry at all, and I feel like the overprescription of drugs is a really big problem that we have in society. But that being said, somebody like yourself who is clearly and not only you, like I have my cousin unfortunately killed herself a few years ago, and she was very heavily medicated, and I think that actually helped her throughout the times that she was happy, but it's like there's no real answer of like what's good or what's wrong. It's just that I feel like if it works for you and it's good for you and it's not taking something away from you, that's great. And if you can function or work or figure out a solution that doesn't rely on it, that's good as well.
Definitely.
And it seems to me like you also understand it on like like academic cerebral level. So it's very interesting that like you can quantify your need for it into a thing of like, this is something that actually helps me function in society. Without it, I can't function in society. And as you get older and as you kind of like figure things out more and more and more, as we all do, I'm sure that your knowledge of understanding yourself and the substances and medicine that you need to take, it will help you divulge and reach a point where maybe you don't need it. Maybe you find something else. Maybe you understand something differently. So I just want to say that like, even though I don't like these things, I understand the use and need for them, and don't judge anybody that takes them or uses them. Unless you're abusing them, and then I can judge you as much as I want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's overprescription is such a complicated issue, and I think the United States medical industrial complex is such a complicated thing to take on and understand. And again, something that really kept me away from clinical psychology, because I was like, I hate the way this functions. And I think it makes it really hard for folks to find the help that they need. And like I said, I'm really lucky that I don't have a crazy amount of side effects from taking Adderall. There's definitely like pros and cons with it. I definitely do have I do get angry at the end of the day every now and again if I didn't like feed myself or eat or drink properly throughout the day. Like,
that's kind of normal though. That's like, you would probably be like that
yeah,
anyways.
I definitely have some side effects here and there with it. Very lucky that was like, that works for me.
It.
But I think
yeah.
the way our medical system is set up, it makes it really hard for people to find an individually tailored solution that might not be medication based, and that we don't look at things outside of our realm of Western medicine. I think there's a really delicate balance in between like things that have been around for hundreds of thousands of years and things that are new. And I think that needs to be considered in like the broad scope of people like
definitely should be
finding something that works for them. And again, like I this is something I can really get into because something that I loved when I was doing psychology was individual differences and knowing that not everybody's brain works the same and not everybody's body works the same. And there's going to be things that work for some people and there's going to be things that don't. And it's really silly to like expect people to like, I guess, like when I was saying like societally function, it's silly to like expect people to like be able to do that because everybody is so different. How can we expect the mass majority of people to be able to function within that? And it sucks that like overprescription exists because it simply like pacifies a problem to make something, I guess, fit into the box of what we think it should be.
Totally.
So again, that's something I feel like really, really strongly about because, like I said, Adderall works for me. It does not work for a lot of people, and I'm very aware of that.
Super addicting,
and I think, I think we need to take lots of different, like, very dialed in approaches to each person.
Personal, right? Personal.
Yeah.
And it's like funny because most of the world understands that, but in America, like you said, it's a very simple reason. It's the military. It's the medical industrial complex. It's exactly that. It's profit over people. You know, it's there's rampant under law. There's not enough laws about marketing and about the way that they do. You probably know this. It's illegal to sue a medical company for medicine, like if they fuck up.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. I mean, it might. I know it's specific to vaccines. I know it's specific to vaccines. I don't know if it's the same for medication, but like, you're not allowed to sue a vaccination company if they made a vaccine that hurts you or harms you. And like the logic behind it is so freaking so stupid because it's like, it's like, the logic behind it is that these companies spend millions and millions of dollars so that it's not fair if their thing is not working well. But it's like, what? There's no logic to that. It's really just so that they can do whatever they want and push out a product as fast as possible, and there's no repercussions. This is like from the late 90s. This law came into play, and it's now being challenged with post COVID and all the vaccination problems that happened there. It's being challenged now, and there's been a few lawsuits. Hopefully, will be overturned and changed. But it's like, what is that going to cause if a medical, and especially in today's society where it's like capitalism, let's not get into it too much, but capitalism is, the push of society. And I'm a capitalist. I'm just ethical about my capitalism. I have, I don't put my capitalism in the forefront. I try to use the capitalism to my gain without hurting, taking advantage and destroying the world, and if you do that, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with personal gain. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have more capital. There is a problem when you do it and don't take into account the people around you, the environment, and especially when you manipulate and propagandize and indoctrinate, then it becomes very evil. So on that note, I think we should call it a day. It was so nice talking to you. Please, if you want to say anything or tell people where to go to find out more information about you, feel free.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on too. This has been so much fun and I've had such a good time chatting and, about this, that, and the other. And, you can find me on Instagram. crystalbeth.art is my handle. My website is currently under construction and will be up soon.
Cool.
And within my Instagram bio, my link tree has linked everything, including my Patreon, my YouTube, I believe my TikTok as well. I think everything is crystalbeth.art for the most part, other than my Patreon, I think is just Crystal Beth art. But yeah, everything's linked in that link tree in my bio.
Awesome.
I'm very active on Instagram, so if you guys want to be friends or chat or whatever, that would be cool. Again, I love building this community and being a part of it, and I want to encourage others that might be interested in it to just like take the leap and do it. Like, it's so fun. I am so grateful that I get to do this all the time. So I get to do cool stuff like this, like chat to you and work with cool people, and yeah. So again, yeah, thank you for having me on.